Welcome to Armchair Expert, this edition of Experts on Expert with your host, Monica Padman, and her boy toy, Dan Shepard. Today we have a very interesting human being on.
Very.
And I'm not even that into sports, because it really transcends sports, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But Michael Gervais is a sports psychologist or a high-performance psychologist, and he works with some amazing folks. He worked with that crazy bonkers RedBull guy who jumped out from outer space. Also works with the Seattle Seahawks. He really knows his shit.
He was great.
Yeah, it was really fun to talk to him about how one trains their mind to accomplish their goals and how to even find out what your goal is and your purpose.
Mental gymnastics.
He's a mental
and
gymnast.
Physical gymnastics.
He also has a podcast called Finding Mastery with Michael Gervais. I encourage you to listen to that. It's really interesting. Also, there are a few tickets left for San Francisco, so if you haven't gotten those, please swing on over to our website, www.armchairexpertpod.com. Follow the link, and you can get tickets for that before it's too late. Please enjoy Michael Gervais.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
Michael Gervais, how are you?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Welcome to Experts on Expert. I'm really excited to talk to you because we haven't really talked to anyone that does what you do.
No.
Oh, cool.
And in fact, you have a very, not to undermine it, but a very niche endeavor. I can't imagine that there are too many folks in your field, are they?
Well, there's a large industry of psychologists, then there's a smaller industry of sport and performance psychologists, and then much smaller of folks that are spending time in hostile and rugged environments. And so in sports psychology, pretty niche, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really the study of the extraordinary. How do the extraordinary people do what they do?
Well, one thing I was listening to you talk on this topic, you were pointing out that historically, psychology was kind of a pursuit of pathology or looking for, things that were wrong with people's thinking or mental processes. And that there was a shift 40 or 50 years ago where people started going, well, hold on, let's look at extraordinary things that are happening or highly efficient things that are happening. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. Yeah. Traditional psych was born out of the medical model. And, that's got to study the dysfunction of things. That's where we started.
Yeah.
And so it's very different now. The interest, I think, is much higher for the study of, and I'm talking about broadly speaking, for how the most extraordinary thinkers and doers in the world operate and condition themselves to be able to do just that.
Yes.
The interest is higher there.
Yes.
Because we are more attuned to want to know how to explore our potential rather than to identify the things that are not working well.
Yeah. There seems to be this kind of cottage industry in the book world of exploring, famous people who have been extraordinary in their functionality at some given profession. Like even I read Outliers. Of course, I was drawn to that. I don't know if you read that Malcolm Gladwell book. Even Essentialism. I don't know if you know about that book. But again, it kind of does these quick portraits of people who are, have some enviable achievement. And we seem to be kind of obsessed with people who are, special in that regard.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we always have been.
Oh, okay. So there's a history of this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you think, well, like, let's go back to Da Vinci. Mm-hmm. Fascinated. Even at the time, he was an enigma. Mozart, and then even more modern times, like Mother Teresa, even though she's not an artist per se, she might have been one of the most famous women in the world without a PR firm.
Yeah, she really broke through, and without social media or anything.
Yeah, right? Like, it'd be hard-pressed to find someone that doesn't know who she is or what she stood for.
Yes, although the Catholic Church, very famous amplifier of messages. They do have a network they can disseminate info pretty quickly.
And do other things with information as well.
Yeah, they can really bury it.
They can bury it.
Yeah, they've been quite...
Really powerful.
It's less so recently.
Currency. Yeah, information's a currency.
Yes. So just to give a little some breadcrumbs of where we'll end up, Michael, you both worked with the guy who jumped out of the RedBull Stratos. But if people remember, this is a guy who he jumped from technically outer space, right?
That's it.
Yeah. What was his elevation when he did that?
Just about 130,000 feet.
130,000 feet. That's incredible because the moon's only 234,000 miles or something like that.
Yeah, the project was named after the stratosphere. So it was RedBull Stratos. So he went right to the edge, if you will, of space. I mean, the environment there is one of the most hostile environments in the world.
Right.
You know, blood boils, you can't breathe without support. And it is one of the most dangerous environments.
He went up in a capsule. What was it being elevated through like a weather balloon type situation?
Huge weather balloon that took him up to that distance. And it was designed to basically stall or stop at that place, you know, around in that range.
Well, right. Well, right there, already out of the gates,
Yeah.
that range.
That range.
I mean,
yeah.
did they run any kind of, trial without him in it just to see if it...
Yeah, there was lots. These are some of the brightest minds in aerospace that had a real interest. This wasn't like hey, let's go get, a couple balloons and see what we can do. This was like, these were some of the brightest minds in aerospace trying to sort out what happens if we're going to leave this planet. Mm-hmm. What happens if we have to hit the eject button? Right?
Right.
Right. And
yeah.
So
Good
there was a
question.
great endeavor that went into it. At the same time, there is a real interest from Felix to know, like, can I? Could I? Can I be the first to do it? Maybe the only? Like, there's that part of it as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
Winning glory. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For sure.
Was there any kind of collaboration with any kind of like NASA type?
Yeah, it was, the officially, the names of the folks and the industries that were part of it are off record.
Oh, okay, so all the
I can't comment
aerospace
on-
engineers and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, the
Okay.
official stuff. But there was some support. I actually don't know the exact kind of where that gray area is, so I'll just say that yes.
Right. So they
Right,
probably
yeah.
contracted some kind of aerospace JPL type folks to
Exactly
assist.
right. Exactly right. Yeah.
Right. And it was all funded by Red Bull in their endless pursuit of the impossible, which is entertaining as hell to watch. I feel grateful I was born in an era where they're like funding stupid things.
It is wild. And what's interesting is that you and I watch them, and we see crazy. Mm-hmm. But we miss, like, let's say Felix. Mm-hmm. We missed when he jumped off the curb just a little bit earlier than everyone else. We missed when he jumped off the fourth step when everyone else was jumping off the third step of the stairway. Mm-hmm. So we missed when he jumped out of a tree, when he jumped, fill in the blanks.
We're
fill in the
joining
blanks.
him at the apex of his pursuit.
Yeah, so it's a totally different experience. He's highly skilled.
Right.
Incredible.
How does one
incredibly
become skilled at falling out of an object? I mean, it's kind of
Falling
like
a lot.
Like
Yeah.
I remember, just side note, I did this movie Without a Paddle, and there was a stunt in it where we jumped off a like 120-foot waterfall, and I very much wanted to do that because that was my hobby as a kid, was jumping off bridges and stuff. And they said, well, no, we can't allow you to do it because
That's a real height.
you haven't been trained for it. And I go, what are you talking about? There's no training for jumping off a waterfall. You just fucking jump.
Well.
And you land on not flat water and you keep your arms in. Like, what are you talking about training? There's no school for jumping off waterfalls. Anyways,
Did you do it?
they did not let me. What was really helpful for my ego was that Burt Reynolds was also in the movie. And he said, he pulled me aside and he said, did you see Deliverance? And I go, yeah, love it. You're my hero. Started then. He goes, remember when I went down that waterfall? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, I broke my back and you can't tell it's me. Let the guys jump off the waterfall. And I was like, all right, if Bert's telling me to pass, I can
that's
stomach
cool.
this.
Yeah. So I've been fascinated though most of my life, like, and we can use your story as an example. Like, why did you want to jump? Why did you want to do something that was dangerous?
Yeah.
That in a sane mind, that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to protect ourselves. We're supposed to like take care of our next generation. We're supposed to provide resources for our loved ones. Like, why did you want to do that?
I wonder that too. I don't have that at all. I never want to jump off the waterfall.
Right.
Even if everyone's doing it, I could care less about that.
Well, my thing I now understand to be tribalism, rites of passage, proving my willingness to get into a life-threatening situation so that my brothers know that I'll be there for them. Like, I now understand the mechanics evolutionarily, why I was drawn to that stuff, but I will put on top of that another layer, which is no dad around, trying to get male approval from all peers. And so anything that earns you glory or gave you manhood, I was the first to sign up. I fought, I drank too much, I tried to have sex with everyone, like anything, all the generic bullet points, I was just running through. If you were to ask me 12 years ago, I would just said like, well, I just like it. And I would have
feels
trusted
good.
that. Yes,
Yeah.
and it does for me. We used to jump off this railroad bridge in Ann Arbor all the time. It's an amazing sensation. I just really love it. But I now understand there was way more happening than that.
So you've done some work.
Yes.
You've
I'm
done some work.
I'm 14 years sober, so it kind of requires you to do,
Well, some people white knuckle it.
That's true.
Yeah.
People.
That's a hard way to go now.
Exactly. I meet people all the time that they're doing it, which is great. And I go, yeah, but can I just be honest with you? The quitting drinking was the least I got out of this experience. I mean, that's literally, that's the least important thing for my life at this point.
Yeah, that's cool.
Back to why, were you drawn to those things?
Oh, yeah.
You were?
Yeah. I mean, so I grew up in action sports and action adventure sports. So those things that are just a little off axis, backcountry type sports, as opposed to soccer, stick and ball sports. Right?
Yes.
Like I played them as a kid, but I didn't fit in. I didn't like the manufactured part of it. And so, I've always been drawn to that. And there's an aliveness.
Okay, I'm gonna armchair theorize on you as well. Just tell me if this holds water at all. Also, your dad worked too much, right?
Yes.
When dad works too much or dad's not there, dad can't do reps in the yard. He's not gonna throw you the ball 80 times to shoot baskets. You're not gonna run long for a pass. So I didn't have anyone at home working with me on any of that stuff. So those are organized sports. When I showed up, I felt so behind the buck. Everyone else was so advanced that I was like, fuck these things. I'm drawn to any individual sport where no one's dad could have passed on snowboarding because it didn't exist, or skateboarding, or BMX. So I have to imagine that's in your soup somewhere.
I like that you've done your homework. It's good. And I like that you recognize armchair.
Oh, yeah.
Really
I've got no business making this assessment.
No, both of those are really, really good. Dad worked a lot and then was around for sure to play sports. He was actually coach for my soccer team.
Oh, he was? Okay.
Yeah, so there was some of that engaged, but you're spot on about like there is a draw to the borderless environments where there's really very few rules. And so that was actually the draw more than like I didn't fit in because I couldn't catch the ball. It wasn't that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was more like, wait a minute, this is all manufactured and there's a lot of rules going on.
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel right. Like, I don't feel like that's the DNA of the human.
Yeah.
And so I was more attracted to the other stuff.
Did you or do you have an aversion in general to male authoritarian or disciplinarian types?
It's a really good question because, so I'm currently, for the last 8 years, I've been up with the Seattle Seahawks, the NFL team. And when John Schneider, the GM, and Coach Carroll, Pete Carroll, the head coach, when they draft players, there's an insight and an understanding that when there's not a male figure around for extraordinary talent, like we're betting big on extraordinary talents, and there's a difference in the way that we engage with them and coach when there was a male figure around and when there wasn't.
That's so awesome.
Flat out. You know,
Yeah.
and there's just a different sensitivity.
Are you allowed to tell me how those approaches differ?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think that this is not a rule.
Right.
Back to that thought. But the idea is that if there wasn't a male figure that had that baritone voice and that occupied the space that you would imagine from a larger voice, call it a male energy for lack of a more articulate placeholder,
Sure.
that as soon as a coach takes that space, so there's a baritone voice, there's a large presence, and there is a suggestion or a command that what you're doing is not good enough, that all of a sudden it's like new territory and all of the alpha tendencies pipe up. And one of two things happen, fight or flight.
Right.
So they get small, right, which is rare in alpha sports. They get small, or they, let's use a phrase like a common phrase, they bow up. And like, what? You
Yeah.
can't talk to me like, and it's like, wait a minute, I'm actually not addressing you. I'm decoding right. I'm using my voice to say what you're doing is not good enough.
Right.
And so there's this over attachment to the person being criticized, and then the male energy of that kind of booming presence, if you will.
Yeah, and there's layers too, right? So
It's complicated.
There's you didn't have dad. You weren't used to that, being kind of bossed around by a guy. And you don't know the reward of it because at least those guys got male approval, they got dad's approval, and they felt like they were becoming men. But I'll add into it, single mom means random dudes come around. which was my experience. And it's like, here comes a new dude with a whole game plan of how we should live.
The whole trust thing. There's layers on trust as well.
And you get to an age where you're like, no, I'm an adult now. The days of me listening to some random dude tell me what the game plan is out the window.
And those guys that I trusted, they left.
Yes.
So who are you now telling me what to do? But the essence, the net of it is that it is hard to be coached. It is hard to be in a relationship where the person is pointing out the things that are not good enough. And that's an amateur coach. World-class coaches, like the best coaches in the world, they are in a relationship to want to see a person flourish. They ask way more questions than give directives. And they really deeply regard the experience of the doer and the thinking patterns that support the doer. So they ask a lot more questions.
Yeah, and is the positive reinforcement also amplified, or
I don't think so.
No, okay.
So if we broke it up into bands, I like we're talking about this because I don't talk about this. Like this is like, I don't know. This is a conversation I rarely get into.
Oh, good.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
so fascinating.
Well, I can promise you this is the first time I've had it. So, like, I'm delighted to hear that that's even a strategy that exists. Them going, because I just think there's this really bullheaded, especially in sports. It's like, no, we're not bending to your will. You get with the fucking program, or you get on another team. Which, sure, that's a quick way to go through it, but you could be leaving, the next Allen Iverson out on the curb because you didn't, you could have gotten a lot more. Could have been short-sighted.
There's lots of ways to create cultures to, bring out talent, if you will. There are not a whole lot of ways to create a culture that celebrate people's uniqueness and to help them flourish both on and off the sporting environment. And that's something that Coach Carroll has done in an extraordinary way, is that he is, and I'd love to go into detail about this, but he has created a relationship-based approach. And so not an outcome-based approach, but a relationship-based culture that is designed to understand the person, their core, what they're about, what they want, help them shape that, and then backfill via an agreement, right? Sometimes it's an invisible handshake. Sometimes it's really clear and written, but an agreement that, okay, we understand the fabric of what we think is possible. And the athlete, nods their head and there's a calibration back and forth like, yeah, okay, let's agree that we're going to work towards that. And then we backfill all of the psychological tools, all the physical tools and technical tools, and that becomes the essence of the culture.
Now, what does it do to, because again, if I were a head coach, I can imagine fearing that, well, shit, if I give Jim these set of parameters, and then I got to give Kyle these set, there will be players who are resentful, let's say players who had dads and aren't afraid of authority or whatnot. There's going to be different rules probably, or seemingly there's not.
That's different.
Okay.
So rules are a different thing. This is like the essence and the fabric
how you're being
of the
talked
agreement.
to and communicated.
Yeah, the agreement that you're making to go on this thing together. And whatever, sport is just an apt metaphor for life, really, in many ways, right? And so this is an agreement. This could be a father-son. This could be a spouse, where what is possible for you? Start there. Like what is possible in your life? Not probable, but what is possible? And
Can I
then
have a quick question there?
Yeah.
How does one assess what's possible? Because it's the unknown, right?
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
That is where I think the genius of imagination comes in, calibrated with history.
Okay.
So it's like balancing those two things, because if you're just using your imagination alone and it's not grounded in something that has some evidence, it's a little crazy.
Right. You can't say, I want to run a 3-second 40-yard dash.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And you haven't trained and no one's ever done it. The fact that no one's ever done it is not the problem, but it's that you're deconditioned or have never been conditioned. But it's not grounded in a place that's real. Right. But now you're getting into the art of bringing out the best in other people. And so that is a really cool skill. And whether it's a relationship, whether it's an employee, whether it's a kid, like that, starting with that question is really cool. And I also don't want to forget the part about rules.
Oh, yeah.
Because rules are different. So rules are like, there are different rules, unwritten rules and written rules in some cases, for high earners, the extraordinary talents, and if those rules bend or bleed too much into other people's dignity, it becomes problematic. But they're like, it'd be naive to say everyone's treated the same. No, everyone is treated equally different because we're all uniquely different. And so that's the aspiration, is like, let me know you. But the rule is, and Coach Carroll has 3 rules. I don't know if you're curious to know what those 3 rules are. Yeah. Okay. 1, always protect the team. Take care of each other. Right? Whether that's on the field or off the field, whether that's in a club.
You're in a nightclub, you see a guy getting hot, you fucking go over there and defuse that.
Always protect the team. You're part of this crew here. Like, take care of each other.
It's bigger than
in
you.
all ways. Yes. Right? So that's a really important part of why a majority of people don't do well after sport.
I was just going to bring that up. I watched a really compelling interview with Brett Favre when he was saying post-football, he didn't miss the adulation. He didn't miss the paycheck. He missed the camaraderie in the being a part of a unit. And he actually had to find a new unit to save his life.
Yeah. And it's not easy.
Right.
And especially ones that are so mission-minded, so brotherhood-based, whether it's a female, or a male environment, or mixed. Like, that brotherhood, is lack of a more sensitive word, like togetherness, is rare. So, so always protect the team. Take care of each other.
Number one.
No whining, no complaining, no excuses. In other words, own your stuff.
Okay.
Right?
No whining, no complaining.
No excuses.
That's got to be a tough one, man.
And we have fun with it. So as soon as someone like, hey, what's up? And they go, my dog, whatever. Like, the room will erupt. Like, oh, my rule 2 violator. Look what we got here. Like, so there's a
little public shaming.
Yeah, like, it's fun. And, there's lots of little textures to that are cool.
By the way, you wouldn't know this about Monica and I, of course, but our New Year's resolutions this year were kind of the same tree.
In the same fabric. Yeah.
Mine was I was no longer going to complain about anything. And then Monica's was she was going to stop saying I'm busy when people ask how she's doing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For that same reason, like, it sounds like a complaint or an excuse of some sort. Even if it's not, it's like, there's no reason to do that.
The busyness, for me, it seems like a moniker of success, like a false moniker of success.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, it's like, oh, you busy? Well, does that mean I'm ineffective with my time?
Right.
Right.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. So I love both those.
My thing was I find this brown lining as opposed to a silver lining. It's even the greatest things happening in my life, because on some level I'm a little bit of ashamed about how disproportionate my luck has been in life. And so I'm always putting a spin. Like, yeah, I got this great thing, but now I found out you got to take it and get it serviced fucking 40 miles away, and you can't even drive. Like, I dump. And then I realized, I'm doing this to kind of hopefully make them not hate me, but it's coloring my experience, because now I'm putting my energy and focus into something negative.
Okay, that's interesting. So that's you becoming small to almost like hide some ways of your successes. Like, hey, I'm just like you.
Yes, my shame over having,
Is it shame? Embarrassment?
If I'm talking with a friend who I know makes $38,000 a year and is on a roof all day and is killing their body physically, and I don't want to go wear this shirt at a red carpet for X amount of money and blah, 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 I feel like a fucking asshole. I think rightly so. Like, I need to keep in check. Hey, you're talking to someone who's fucking killing themselves.
Love that.
So I think that's where it started. Where it's also a family thing. I notice everyone in my family complains a lot. It's kind of that's also part of the mix.
Or I think that they feel, and people in general who complain feel that the negative things are the things we have in common. So if you're relaying the thing that's negative, it's like, that's how we can connect, because we both have bad stuff, right? But it's like, that's a horrible way to connect with someone.
Yeah. Like, you can't relate to the fact that I got this really cool car, but you can relate to the fact that it's a pain in the ass to go get X, Y, and Z done to this car,
But they could relate. They could relate to that feeling. Maybe not getting that new car, but getting something good. And then they're like, oh, yeah, that's making that person happy. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
So it's just misinformed in our brains.
You guys brought this up earlier, that this desire, this deep need that we have to connect. And so this is the second time we're talking about it today, or in this conversation. So through relationships, we become. Nobody does this thing alone, right? Not even individual athletes, individual actors, businessmen and women. Like, nobody does it alone. There's a deep, deep desire to be connected. And we will do funny things to connect.
Yes.
Right? And if you look at the neurobiology of it, what we're really chasing in that essence is oxytocin.
The
Notice
love hormone.
Yeah, the cuddle chemical. You know, that thing that happens after you make love or have a baby or have an exchange, whether it's an intense exchange or not. There's an oxytocin release, and so that's one of the reasons that technology is screwing us up. Now, technology is amazing. I'm not going to sit here and dump and be on that zeitgeist about technology. We're using it right now, and it's whatever.
Well, it's gray. It's neither great nor terrible.
Yeah, I mean,
there's some ups and some downs, right?
I would say that. Like, there's some beautiful assets and there's some real challenges. But when we're texting back and forth or we're looking at pictures of other people, that we're getting dopamine and serotonin, two other really powerful neurochemicals, but we're not getting oxytocin.
Right.
So what happens if we reduce oxytocin, whether we're complaining with them or not, or misguided connection, right?
Yeah.
Or we're actually making love with a person, or in a great conversation, eye contact is taking place, and we're stimulated by the conversation, and we're getting that oxytocin. When we don't have it, we just basically have this thrust inside of us of adrenaline and feel-good chemicals completely alone. That's one of the reasons we're seeing people reporting depression, anxiety related to technology.
Yeah, and it's specifically triggering, right, your pleasure reward system of your brain.
Dopamine, serotonin. That's it.
So all that, slot machine, Instagram, everything quick, fast, shiny, bright, loud, bells is
But
basically
no oxytocin.
is the strawberry on the tree, evolutionarily. But there's no, it's so 2D. It can't produce oxytocin.
What trees do strawberries come from?
That's a vine. I guess. Yeah. An apple. How about that? A shiny apple.
Shiny apple. Yeah.
Now,
I grew up on a farm. Remember, I had some years in that.
What state was that?
It was Virginia. 4th grade. I came to California.
Well, we're going to get into that, but first, let's go to rule number 3. So number 2 is no complaining, and then so there's some good-hearted group shaming when people break that rule. It sounds like.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not this. You broke rule number. It's not like that.
Right.
It's more playful and fun, and then that ends up creating and shaping part of the culture of having fun. Like Coach Carroll loves to have fun, and he loves to figure out how to bring the best collectively out of each other, and then the culture ends up being celebrating. I'll get to the 3rd rule, but it ends up celebrating no. I feel like people are invested, my teammates and my coaches, and people are invested in me flourishing, and they're getting it too. This feels really good.
Yeah, being dependable and accountable to other humans weirdly feels good.
Yeah.
It's counterintuitive a little bit, right? Because it sounds like it's an obligation or homework or being of service, which is going to prevent you from doing something you might want to do selfishly. But the result is very positive, right?
And that's where rule number 3 comes in, which is be early.
Be early. Well, I like that instead of be on time.
Yeah, not be on time. Be early. In other words, organize your life in such a way that you demonstrate that you have regard for the other people that are trying to do something difficult and hard and beautiful and wonderful. You guys are sighing right now.
Well, we see eye to eye on this.
Yes.
We're very judgmental of people who are late.
I have a really hard time with people who are late. It really triggers
It feels like really
something.
disrespectful.
Yes.
Yeah.
that they have valued their time more than everyone else's around them.
And the way that we look at it is that we say they're disorganized. Their priorities aren't quite in line.
Listen,
and so we go that way with it. Get your stuff together.
Right.
This is attribution error syndrome. So
nice job. Look at you.
I just assigned a character assessment, right? Which is you think your shit doesn't stink and you're more valuable than other people. That's a character assessment. And yours was circumstantial. So it's the mechanics of their day. They're not good planners, which is the much better way to see the world.
Well, it takes out that personal attack.
Yes. I'm so glad that just happened because that's a really hard example to give a concrete thing of. And that's it in a nutshell.
But you've learned it through, did you do 12 steps?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've learned that, it's not the person, it's the behavior. Right. And so that's and listen, shame and guilt are 2 of the culprits for addiction, right? That keeps people stuck.
Yeah.
And so one way to help people through that too is to say, listen, it's not you. Your behaviors are not okay. And I'm not going to be around you if you have these behaviors.
Yeah.
But it's not you, it's your behaviors.
Well, there's a line in the big book that's we got sick of people never judging us by our intentions, only our behavior. It's your intentions aren't crazy relevant at this point if you haven't shown up to pick up your kid the last 3 days in a row. Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare. Okay, sorry, back to your...
No, that's it. It's like, so that's the third rule, which is like, get your priorities in line.
And you know why I like be early as opposed to be on time? Being on time is hard to bullseye. It's harder to bullseye than...
Exactly. Yeah. Isn't that a good insight? Yeah.
Yeah, like it just mechanically, it's kind of a bad goal to have because it's so specific. And because I generally move through life thinking be on time, I do it every morning with drop my daughter off at school, and I fucking suck at it. In fact, this morning I saw another parent, and I'm like, I'm not doing this well. Like we are rushing every single day.
We pass on anxiety to our children in lots of ways. You know?
Yeah, I got to do it for her. But yeah, as opposed to me thinking I must walk through that gate before 8:30, and I just
it's like 8:25.
Yeah, get there early.
Yeah.
So I'm just everything's going to get moved back a lot.
Isn't that morning? I have a 10-year-old. Isn't that morning thing a challenge?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to take care of me a little bit too. I got to dump before I leave the house. That's a non-starter. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I would miss a meeting with the president. I got to get that done. So you're like trying to manage them getting ready, but I got to go do my own thing for a few minutes. Yeah, it gets tough.
You know what's worked for us is that we switch on music in the morning. So, my son has a playlist.
Okay.
And so we fire up his playlist. It's his feel-good stuff.
Uh-huh.
And we get music rolling in the house. Every room, you get it rolling.
Yeah.
And it changes the nature of the seriousness of whatever in the morning.
Yeah, I'd say 1 in 5 mornings I do that. Would you say you come over and there's music playing?
Yeah.
Maybe less.
I do think, though, for his kids, that just makes them dance and just get distracted. If I come in and there's music, I'm often like, okay, we gotta do something.
but yeah, totally true. But also, generally there's no fighting happening when you come into that environment. And so the fighting to me is just as distracting. Like they can't brush their teeth when they're fighting. They can't get
That's
ready when they're
true.
fighting. And there's a whole bunch of fighting if they're not in the happy
them,
veil.
yeah.
Yeah. They're 4 and 6, so it's and they share a room, and it's a lot.
But there was something you were gonna say before we got back into rules. Is there any way we remember it? I don't.
Bands. I don't think we ever got to it. Like the bands of coaching, amateur coaching.
Yeah, maybe that.
Professional
was it.
coaching.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So like amateur coaches, now there's no science about what I'm saying. This is observation. I'm not able to reference anything from here.
Yeah.
And I say that because I try to squarely be in the anchors of science with everything I do, and appreciating that innovation has to happen in the theater, in the amphitheater of whatever, innovation has to happen. But when it's grounded in good science, like we can go somewhere. So amateur coaching, they say a lot and they're not really accurate. And it's more about them than it is, the other person. That's like an amateur coach.
Uh-huh.
Maybe they want to do well for other people, but it's just not together.
Right.
They're not skilled and whatever. Okay.
Then are they often just aping or parroting some ideal they have absorbed through media and movies and Hoosier or whatever the fuck it was, that they've been misled perhaps?
Not skilled.
Yeah.
And like not really informed, and maybe it worked for them, but low insight and understanding of how
probably
people
not
work.
intentional as
That's
much
right.
as they would want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There you go. And then we've got like performance coaching. So they got their stuff together. They say a little bit too much, but they tend to be accurate, right? They're pretty accurate with what they say. Like they've been around, they've got good frames of reference. They understand people a little bit better. They understand the craft a bit better. So they're good. They're going to get some good results with people, and it's not all about them.
Right.
Right. So there's a relationship, but it usually is about performance.
Yeah.
And it's snapped into outcomes. And now listen, we all need outcomes. There's an invisible handshake that we all make with each other all the time that if you don't perform, we're not going to hang out.
Right.
And unless it's family, that's different.
Yeah, you'll let them get away with murder.
Yeah, it's amazing,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah. And then there's
Literally sometimes.
Sure. That's right.
What do you know?
Not for me, but
We always debate this, and I'm always like, I would absolutely shelter a fugitive family member.
You would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah.
You would not.
Yeah.
I probably would too.
My wife claims she would turn me in. She'd turn her mother in. She'd turn our children in.
For the sake of
she's a
other
rule
people.
follower.
For the sake of other people.
For the safety of others.
This person could then keep harming people if we don't do that.
I'm like, I'll go to an island.
That's his.
I'll take her. I'll take the kid. We'll go. She's a murderer. All right, her and I will go spend our rest of our life on an island. We'll make sure it doesn't happen. But
it's a cool argument.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
It's good. There's a lot like institutional law versus like nature of humans, and and the dignity and right of others. Yeah. Okay, good. So then there's elite coaches, and those coaches, like I said earlier, they ask a lot more questions.
Okay.
They have such a regard. They have such a command. They've seen so many things. They really have a deep understanding, and the real deep information comes from the person that's doing it.
Now, let me just ask you really quickly about those coaches. I have to imagine that an element in this is, again, similar to AA. One of the tenets of AA is find somebody that has what you want and ask them how they got it and listen, right? So I see this all the time because, I'm not super into football, but I love Hard Knocks. I love the HBO show about the preseason, and I love seeing the dynamics that exist and the approaches and all these different things. I often think, well, that coach, he has nothing I want. He's fucking morbidly unhealthy. He doesn't have a relationship with his wife. He's angry a lot, I see. I just, on some integrity level, if I'm on that field, I'm like, sorry, bud, you're not walking the walk. You're not somebody that has what I want. You don't have any kind of contentment. You don't have peace of mind. Other aspects of your life, they're all in shambles. So is that at all part of it?
Oh,
do they have to walk the walk to get that respect?
Well, it depends on the culture that they're allowed to be in. If it's an outcome-based culture and they know how to, at all costs, help somebody win, then they'll probably be tolerated, barely respected, but not loved.
Right.
Not appreciated, not regarded.
Yeah.
And it depends on the culture. And I love that you're pointing that out. Like when I go to, let's say, a financial advisor, like I want them to be really switched on. I hope they make 10x what I make.
Yes.
If I'm going to a fitness coach, like have your stuff together. Yeah. Like, live it, understand it, apply it.
I agree.
Yeah. This is one of the reasons. I hope I'm not going to offend YouTube, but I'm going to say it anyways because it's a strong belief system that I have here is that like life coaching scares me.
Oh, I have a big aversion to it personally.
Good. So we're friends. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, granted, there are probably hundreds of really great life coaches that would change people's lives. But yes, I am just in general a little bit cynical or suspicious of.
Yeah.
You had better be like just a thriving human being on all
switched on all levels, yes. Like on it. So, anyways, now that we're bashing entire industry, but yeah. So,
like when I look at again, we'll move it out of sports in some way a little bit after this. But when I looked at Phil Jackson, here's a guy who's undeniably got something right. He did it in Chicago, and then he did it here in LA, and this kind of harmony that he can instill, the kind of introspection, all these different things that he seems to imbue onto players. He also, when I just look at him, I'm like, oh, that guy's walking the walk. He is somehow a Buddhist. He is somehow managing his emotions, and he's using frontal lobe thinking at all time. He has capacity over the rest of his brain. Like, that guy's clearly special. And if I was working for him, I'd be like, yes, I will follow you. I can see that you have a secret.
You're picking up on something that is really deep, which is alignment and consistency. So let me back out of that for a minute, is that from clarity, we then begin to have the ability to have conviction in life. But we need a lot in between. We need some real skills to have, consistency over time. So clarity to conviction as just a first model. What you're picking up on is somebody who is consistent across conditions. And so when it's chill, they are themselves. And they can be tightly wound or they could be really relaxed, whatever. And then in high stakes or rugged or demanding environments, they're the same. Mm-hmm. So what allows that to happen is that they have done the internal deep work. And nobody can do this work for another human. But they've done the work to know the principles to guide their thoughts, their words, and their actions. And when you have alignment between your thoughts, your words, and your actions across environment, those are powerful human beings. Those are people that we're attracted to because they've done the real work. They stand for something. Their thoughts, their words, and their actions line up. That's Mandela. Mm-hmm. That was Buddha. Mm-hmm. That was Mother Teresa. That was Helen Keller. That was fill in the blank, fill in the blank. Those people are extraordinary.
Yeah.
And nobody can do that work for them.
Well, by the way, there's also another AA thing that mirrors this, which is watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your character.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so it's really a very similar concept. Now, so let's take it out of the world of sports in that I'm very sympathetic to folks that don't feel that they have a calling, right? Or they're not driven by some North Star just from birth. Or, I'm very sympathetic to that. I think for me, the scariest feeling in life would be to not have a desire to go anywhere in particular.
Dax, that is unfortunately the healthy majority, which is really the word you describe, that the adjective you have is right on. Like, there is hopefully deep compassion for people that are struggling to know purpose and meaning in life.
Purpose, there we go.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's a hard thing to do. Nobody can do it for another person. We can be in communities that help think and nudge and suggest for other people, but we have to do that deep alone work by ourselves, with ourselves. And there's 3 ways to do that I'm familiar with.
Good, thank you, because I gotta imagine that feels very daunting to try to figure out your purpose.
Isn't it though? I mean, just talking about it.
It's so abstract.
It's so abstract, but okay, so let's do that for a minute. Like, what are those 3 mechanisms? And we can kind of snap a layer deeper on it. Is that being around and in conversation with wise people. That helps. Right?
Surrounding yourself
with wisdom.
That's what we're trying to do here. That's the whole point of this.
Yeah, that's the whole point of experts on experts in particular is like,
that's really cool.
Let's hear from some people who've dedicated actual time to any one of these things.
And then the second is listen. This is where mindfulness as a practice pays, dividends, is to really listen to yourself. And so the world is so full of noise that getting to the signal is hard. So signal to noise ratio is an engineering term.
Okay.
It's also a psychological term. So getting to the signal is hard. And what we're talking about with purpose and meaning is part of the signal. So where do we reveal or get in touch with the signal? In the present moment. Mindfulness, which is the act of listening, paying attention without judgment on purpose, is about listening to like what is really happening in the thought stream, the emotional stream, the environment, like what is happening now. So that's the second. And then the third is writing.
Well, give me a concrete example of that before we move on.
When you are paying attention, like you're listening to yourself and all of a sudden it's like, ooh, that's like, oh my God, that's right. Like, that's true. Like, that's a theme in my life, or that feels right to me. That type of aha moment, those types of revelations, those internal insights, as they're often called, those are difficult to find because we're so cluttered with noise. What we should do, what we shouldn't do, what other people are doing, the pace and speed of modern day life, there's lots of noise.
Well, right. That's what essentialism gets into a little bit, is nobody has budgeted time in their life to actually evaluate anything, right? You're just going from task to task to task to task, and you're never stepping back to get a global perspective of your life or even just do some inventory.
This is where athletics is interesting, and we can find something many of us can benefit from the feedback loops that athletes have. So for an athlete to get better, they're in environments that provide real-time and hopefully accurate feedback loops. Like, how do the rest of us get those feedback loops about the email that we sent or the conversation that we had or this conversation? Like, did I just choose the right word or the right direction that we're taking it? I don't know. So what are the feedback loops? And so in athletics, world-class athletics, there's incredibly sophisticated feedback loops. There's somebody watching you.
Right,
there's
you've got a timer.
That's right. And there's a coach and quote-unquote expert that's helping you make adjustments. They're asking you questions. Your body is giving you feedback, whether you're on balance or off balance, so to speak.
Yeah.
There's film, there's tape. There's incredible feedback loops that are taking place. But for most of us, unfortunately, we don't have them. Now, you can do that with thinking. So you've been practicing. I saw somewhere TM.
Oh, yeah.
Meditation.
Yeah.
Well, the actions are to do a set of activities to become more aware. That's the big word. More aware of your thoughts and emotions. And what does that technically look like or concretely look like? Most practices begin with breathing. And the reason we focus on breathing is there's a couple reasons. One, it's always available.
Yeah, sure.
As long as we're alive physically, it's available. So there's two types of meditation. There's single point and there's contemplative.
Okay.
So single point is focusing on the one thing for an extended period of time. Could be a flickering candle. It could be a sound or a mantra, which is, TM based, or your inhale and your exhale.
Yeah.
Like that's the one thing. And contemplative, just for clarity, is like, just go with it. Just watch without judgment and critique. Just watch what your thoughts and emotions do.
And I might misunderstand my own TM training, but to me, it seems like oddly a combination of both things, because you have the mantra, which is a singular focus thing, yet you're given permission to let your mind wander as much as you'd like. And as you remember to bring yourself back to the mantra. So it's kind of like weaving in and out of both of those.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Right. And it could be separate.
Mm-hmm.
You could set out to do like just some exploratory, contemplative, following, if you will, and see where you go. And or you could do something more mechanical, which is just follow the one thing.
Right.
Yeah. And then when your mind wanders, which it will, just gently bring it back.
Yes.
Like
without this panic of I'm failing at this. That's like the big thing. It's just being given permission to fail for me was why I could do TM. It's like, you're not going to be perfect. You're going to start thinking about taxes are due in a week. That's okay. Think
like
that out.
On breath 1.5.
Yeah.
Right.
Think that out for a minute.
Yeah.
When you feel like you can maybe get that mantra back, go ahead and start doing it again. And I'm like, okay, good. I don't have to be perfect at this.
Well, yeah. And, here's something that I think is really a beautiful thought around it is that this is really awareness training mixed with some refocus training, mixed with some non-judgmental training, like those three things. So the moment in which you recognize that you're off the one thing, that's the moment to celebrate. Like, look, I just did it. I'm completely aware that I'm off from the thing I wanted to do. So now what do I want to do?
Yes.
Right? And so we're always in control. Like we can do whatever we want with ourselves, right? Pretty much. So in that moment, you can say, you know what? I want to just bring it back to the thing. Or you know what? No, I want to follow. I don't want to try to solve. I just want to follow where this thought stream is going.
Yes. When I've had my most like unbelievable TM sessions, it's the first 10 minutes are going to Texas, coming back to the mantra, going to Texas, going back to the next 5, like 10 through 15, I'm starting to settle into my body in a way that I maybe lost feeling in my arms, which is kind of cool. And I'm becoming aware of that. Maybe I can't feel where my leg, are they crossed? Or are they not crossed? So I can't even remember. And then in a great thing, there's 5 minutes of pretty much, I don't even know how to explain it, but I come out of it with an entire act of a screenplay written, something I've been wrestling with forever. And I did not try to think of it. The hamster on the wheel inside was doing it, and I don't know how. And that, to me, to experience that magic where it's like, oh my God, I know exactly what's supposed to happen, and I didn't create it.
Isn't that cool?
Consciously, I didn't create it.
Yeah, the science. So mindfulness is a practice that's been around 2,600 plus years, like best idea there. And the science is ridiculous. Like the science that's coming online right now, there's 1980, there was only a handful of research articles on mindfulness, just a couple for the year. In 2008, there was about 100 and something. So we got this flat line, and then 2008, it bumped up a little bit. In 2018, it's over 1,000. So it's this really clear hockey stick arc, growth, exponential almost, if you will, about like what is actually happening from a scientific lens, from a mindfulness or meditation perspective. And, for one, people that practice mindfulness have an increased frequency in flow state, the most optimal state a human can be in. I mean, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it's crazy good for your body in many, many ways, right? It lowers your cortisol rates, your adrenaline, all these kind of things.
Increases parenting behavior.
Now, you brought up that, not here today, but I heard elsewhere, that nobody has trained their mind, right? You do seminars, you ask folks who has some formal training for their mind. I don't even know what that would mean.
No, I wouldn't say nobody. Very few.
Very few.
To be safe here. Like, yeah, keep going, please. Because it's.
Oh, I was just going to say, even when you said it, I was thinking, boy, if I were in that audience and he asked me, do I have any formal training for my thinking? I'm not sure that I'd know how to answer that. In some ways, I think I have through either AA or the psychology I read or whatever it is, or TM, maybe. I don't know. But then I was like, but I don't know. So what does that mean? And how do people get formal training for their thinking?
It's really,
and break down mind and brain too while you're at it.
Yeah, so you would be able to answer that question relatively easy if I were to ask, have you done any formal training of your body? You'd say, yeah, I've had a coach.
Right.
Right? I've gone to a strength and fitness expert, right? Have you done any formal training for your craft? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've gone to this studio. I've gone to this, acting guru. I've done, right? And you would say yes to both those, right?
Right.
And then when it gets to like, have you formally trained your mind? Part of that is a little bit of a setup because where do you go get it?
Right.
But there's only 3 things that we can train: craft, body, and mind. So what we learn from world-class athletes and performers is they're not leaving that third leg of the stool up to chance. What most people are looking for is alignment. I'll go back to that word again. Like when there's a complete embodiment and there's a believability, like there's a person, whether it's in your craft and art or something else, leadership in business or intimacy in a relationship, like stand for something. Get those words and emotions and body postures lined up so that it's like real. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I've never stepped one day in a shoe of, for an actor and comedian. Like I don't really know, but I do know that what people crave and they recognize it when they see it is that authenticity, that alignment where it's like, oh, what is that?
Yes.
That's it.
Because the thing we are most drawn to is confidence, because it's the thing we most desire. And if you can see someone fearlessly living their authentic self, it's the most attractive thing in the world. Even if it's
rad.
Yeah, even if it's objectively something you would say, I don't like when people do X, Y, or Z. When you can see that it's actually them, they've just opened up their fucking chest and let you look at it, it has a crazy power, right?
And confidence is a trainable skill.
How does someone become confident? This is something I wrestle with all the time. Like I imagine my kids who are inevitably going to enter junior high and high school, and there's going to be this period where it's like, I'm going to be trying to explain to them, you got to fake it till you make it. And your thinking and belief will catch up with your actions at some point. Like, but that's a very hard concept, isn't it? And that might not even be the healthy explanation of what confidence is, but
no,
how do you work on confidence?
Okay, I'm going to totally answer it. And then,
great.
And I also want to say that, how do I do this respectfully? Like,
you're fucked? You can just say you're fucked.
Like, I would say, like, maybe never say that phrase again. Yeah. Like, fake it till you make it. Like, it's really bad.
Is it? Fake it till you make it?
Yeah.
Tell me why.
One, the research on it doesn't hold up.
Okay,
so let's just start with the science. It's not good science.
Right.
It doesn't work.
Okay.
Power poses, bad science. Okay. You probably read that somewhere or
no.
saw
So
that
there
somewhere.
are power poses. Like
it's bad.
Okay.
It's really bad.
So people can like mimic confident stances,
doesn't work.
physicality.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Or at least the research won't hold it up yet.
Okay.
And I don't believe it will. So the idea to fake anything feels really wrong. Right? To this other thing we're talking about, which is deep authenticity, purpose and meaning, and like the idea, hey, fake it. And that's, to me, that's analogous to, hey, get over on people. Mm-hmm. They're going to find out. And by the way, when I'm doing that, I don't feel full. I don't feel right. Mm-hmm. I'm lying to myself and lying to you that I got it together.
But how about this? You're 14, you're at the mall, and you're in the food court, and you see an attractive person. You're terrified to go talk to them, but you have got to act like you are not terrified. That's the fake it till you make it. Like, I don't know that you'll ever harness your adrenaline, but you must present at least some version that's not freaking the fuck out. That's what I mean by fake it till you make it.
So I would go upstream just one level.
Okay.
And I go upstream and I'd say, okay, where does confidence come from? And it comes from only one place. What you say to yourself, that's it. And what you say to yourself when it's credible builds something that is sustainable. Okay, so confidence is this internal thing that we do to say, I think I can do that. Mm-hmm. I think I could go ask. I think, you know what, I could. Mm-hmm. You know what, I can do that. So confidence comes from what you say to yourself, and it's got to be grounded in something that's real, incredible, and believable. So confidence, again, is like, I think I can go do that. right? Like that's kind of a confidence state. And then, but if you're saying things to yourself like, man, I don't know. I don't know what she's going to say. I don't know what my boys are going to think about it. I don't know how this is going to go. Well, that's actually like questioning. They're not statements. They're questions about the outcome. Confidence isn't coming from there.
Okay.
So confidence comes from the mechanical thing. Like, you know what? I'm a good human. I think I'm actually, really, I'm really attracted to that human over there. And what's the worst that could happen? Now I'm asking a question. Well, the worst that could happen is A, B, and C. I can live with that. You know what? I can do this. So there's a credible engagement that takes place.
Yeah, a true evaluation.
Yeah. So that's where confidence comes from. And now if the person can't answer the question, like, can I live with the failure of it? Probably shouldn't do it. Now we got to go upstream again. The most dynamic humans are ones that they don't need. This is going to get complicated, but I think it's worth it. Okay.
If you say approval, I'm going to.
No. No. So trust. I was going to go to trust.
Okay.
So trust of self and trust of others. When I say the word trust, most people think about trust of others. Like, do I trust others?
Right. Okay. Sure.
And trust of self is way more powerful. The idea that I can trust myself to figure out any condition in life is a very powerful place to be in life. Like even the worst thing that I could imagine taking place, like, can you sense that you could figure it out? And when you do, then that's where you want to start somebody, a 12-year-old, like to learn how to trust themselves. Rather than trusting others, trust themselves and then layer confidence on top of it. So how do you build trust of self? Do difficult things, get right to the edge of capacity where you're not very good at it, and then come back to your tribe, to your family, and talk about it. And then do it again. And then get right to the edge, make mistakes, struggle, heart rate's up, come back to the tribe, talk about it. And then before you know it, it's like this is almost like a balloon. The balloon starts kind of small with lots of tension. And as you breathe new experiences, the capacity building, uncomfortableness things, the balloon gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you get to play a little bit more. It's not so refining.
Well, I think that's this does get talked about. It certainly on here it does a lot, but yeah, this is the fatal outcome of helicopter parenting is you're denying your child the confidence building. Like what I say is telling your kid they're great is useless. Allowing your kid to prove to themselves they're great is everything.
I love
You
that.
can't just say, you're great. You could be president. Fuck that. Do you know anything about poli-sci? Are you orator? Do you take debate? No, you can't. No one can be fucking president unless you got a pretty specific skill set. Now, I'd love to provide you with that opportunity to go discover that skill set or work on it. But me telling you can do that is a fucking lie.
That's right. That's really good. And the science backs that up as well. Like when you're going to coach kids or talk to kids or parent them, we want to align our conversations up with things that they're actually in control of. So they're not in control of becoming a president or not. Right. But they are in control of things like effort and attitude and attention to detail and, getting up after a mistake, like the way they adjust to adversity. So when we talk about those things with our young people, more often than outcomes, like getting the job versus like learning from mistakes or whatever, then the kid goes, oh, like I can do that. I can figure out things that are in my control.
Yeah.
And then back to that big word like agency, where people become agents. They are not victims of the circumstances, but they actually put themselves in positions of control.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
Being number one, being great, all these things. Do you ever step back and ask the global question, is it even a good pursuit? Because baked into it is comparison. There's no way to be elite or number one or anything without comparison, which I personally feel like is a brain cancer. So is the right thing for us to do to try to be number one, try to be the best, or is the right thing for us to do find the thing we love process on, and just fucking go bonkers on it. And then you may end up somewhere. You can let other people tell you whether or not you were the greatest of all time, but is it healthy to pursue elite anything or number one anything? That's my kind of global question. This is your complete industry, so I'm asking a very dangerous question potentially, but
yeah. Are you trying to be the best or your best?
okay,
That's the question.
That's a good start. Yeah,
Yeah, right. And I struggle with black and white thinking. I struggle with reductionism. I struggle with
binary anything.
This idea that it is just one way with humans because we are complicated. It's nuanced. It's wonderful. Like it is hard.
Yeah.
Like life is hard, right? It's not easy. Even when you have great command of your inner life and your inner world, it's still challenging.
Yes.
Okay. Now,
You'll only have better tools to deal with the inevitable problem. The problem's never going to be
or the
taken off the
opportunity.
table.
But you could change that and say instead of problem, you could say opportunity or challenge. Like and it not be soft. Like I'm not suggesting like positive psychology and like is the answer to it. I'm just saying in that frame, like not all things are problems. Some things are like opportunities.
Oh yeah,
I'll tell you a thing on the podcast that I have is that I just got I don't know if this happened to you. I think you guys have your own pictures, but we grabbed a picture for a blog site of the person we interviewed. And I had a photographer come and say, okay, that's going to cost you $20,000.
Sure.
So is this a problem? We're going to now turn it into an opportunity. We're going to take some fun selfies with people.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like we're going to do something totally different. Yeah. But anyways, okay. So the best or your best.
Mm-hmm. That's a good distinction.
What I've found is that the comparison model that you're talking about, brain cancer is like, I wouldn't have used those terms, but the idea that it is crazy making, yes. So it is part of a deep question for people. Like, what are you really trying to do? If you are really trying to be the best, there's going to be some consequences, some traps. There's going to be some stuff you got to wrestle with. But don't say you're trying to be your best when you're really trying to be the best. It's like, get honest.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Get honest with yourself. And what I've learned is that people are trying to be their best and they're doing it relentlessly so. And they love the process and they really want to grow at a fast clip to unlock and discover and explore the nuances that they're trying to better understand. That's sustainable. Mm-hmm. And it's not confusing when you get the trophy or the recognition or the reward. Right. And so because you're playing something that is deeper. Now, if you want to be the best, there's challenges there. There's also challenges if you're trying to be your best.
Yeah.
You can get caught in this world of naivete. You don't know what other people are doing and like what world standards are.
Yeah. Can I give you one example? I'm nervous to bring this up because I actually like him and I would love to have him on, but I'm going to say it. There was a documentary on Showtime about Kobe Bryant. Did you see it by chance?
I haven't, but so many people have talked about it. Like,
okay.
What he's done is pretty extraordinary.
Right. So I watched it. One of my best friends, Andrew Panay, watched it. We had lunch and he's like, "Oh God, you see that documentary?" I'm like, yeah, I saw it. That's how you accomplish your goals. And that's how you get into action. That's how you got to have singular focus, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, it's interesting. That was your takeaway. My takeaway was this guy, by my assessment, ruined his life for this. You interview his teammates. They say terrible things about him. You interview people about Shaquille O'Neal. I don't think that guy ever played to his potential, but everyone loved him. He had a great time. His life has been fantastic. And I think, oh, wow, everyone's so fucking caught up in that blue ribbon that you would actually choose an unhappy life without tons of friends, without people loving you and liking you and enjoying being around you. For this fucking thing to say I was number one, so what, on your deathbed, you were going to die peacefully knowing that you were number one. To me, I saw that documentary as like the biggest cautionary tale I've ever seen. It made me go, hold on, be careful. What's the cost of being number one? Because I don't think it's worth it.
Dax, if you knew what I knew about the pursuit of being world leading, you wouldn't be pushing your kids. I'm not saying you are, but if you knew what I knew, like the dark side of that venture is costly. And so I'm right there with you saying, like, whew. That being said, is that there's something incredibly stimulating about unlocking and exploring potential.
Yeah.
Right. And, for a concrete example, it's like if you're the only person that has summited, fill in the blank. Let's just say Everest.
Sure.
In your community, you're the only person that's ever done it. It's really hard to relate to people. The smells, the sounds, the things that you experienced getting there at the top, coming down, when not one other person in your world, your small world or larger circle of influence, like has experienced it. It's really, there's a loneliness to this.
This is the astronaut syndrome. A lot of astronauts suffer
come back
from this.
Different.
Yeah. It's not right to be outside of our bubble and view it. And it's so unrelatable now to everyone else.
So there's the concept that we've been playing with that, and this is something that has been ascribed or we've bought for many generations, certainly in the Western world, is that we need to do the extraordinary to be extraordinary. We need to do amazing things to be amazing, right?
Yeah.
So I'm watching that flip right on its head. And the fact that you are bringing it up in this conversation is really, I love it, because what I'm watching happening right now, and I'm talking about like the tip of the arrow, the 0.5%ers, is that they flip that model. They're saying, no, I need to be more to do more. I need to be me. I need to be grounded. I need to be present, be authentic, be creative. And from that place, let the doing flow. So this I need to do more to be more, broken.
Do you know much about Brody Miller? I don't know a bunch, but I have
The skier?
Yes, the skier. And I have a little bit of understanding of who he is from maybe a 60 Minutes piece they did on him. And it appears to me, and I could be wrong, that guy actually wants to ski his best, and he is in a bubble, and sometimes he wins and sometimes he loses. He's after a perfect run. He's not concerned if someone has a more perfect run or less. And he's done some pretty eccentric things on the tour as a result of this. But I look at it and I go, oh man, now that's who, if my kids were into sports, I'd want them to model themselves after. It's like, he's on his own ride and he's in pursuit of the perfect run, whatever that means to him. And it doesn't require that other people, he fall into some hierarchy for that to happen. He could have the perfect run and lose the race and be delighted. And I think, holy shit, if you could be motivated with that kind of criteria, that excites me.
There was a run, I think it was the last Olympic Games, where, and there's legendary stories about him in, how he operates. So, but he gets down to the bottom of the run. And these are the games. And he puts it on the edge as he's in life and on skis. And he gets down to the bottom. The famous horns are buzzing from the crowd. People are cheering. There's all that kind of stuff that's happening at the end as he slides in. And you see him gather himself. And it's as if he's running the race that he just ran in his mind again. And he's nodding and he's nodding and he's nodding. And it's like, yep, did it. I did it. And then you see him look up.
That's so cool.
And he looks up at his time in the kind of scoreboard, the leaderboard. And he's like, yep, there it is again. Like, so it was, to your point, it was a self-reference first. Did I live true?
Did I execute the game plan?
Well, did I live authentically true? Or did I hold back? And did I play it safe and small? Or did I go over aggressive because I was scared or I didn't think I had what it took? Like, did I run my true race? Did I run my true life? Yeah. It's an apt metaphor for life, what I just described. Now, I don't know Bodhi, and I don't know what happened in that moment, but me watching and knowing stories of him from friends of friends and friends, like, amazing moment. And so that's how I want to live my life too.
Yeah, it's very aspirational. I race cars, and the thing I enjoy about it is for many folks out there, they're trying to win the race. I am trying to do, let's say at Fontana, it's a 23-turn track. It is nearly impossible to go through all 23 turns perfectly as you're supposed to do if a computer was driving the car. So for me, the whole time, if it's an hour and 30 minutes in the car, I'm just like, fuck, turn 13, turn 19. While I'm driving, I got to brake a little bit later, and I got to turn in just a bit earlier, like whatever it is. I'm only, the whole experience for me is internal. I'm just trying to get all 23 turns lined up perfectly, which almost can't be done. Or a couple of laps out of 70, I do it, And then that has accidentally put me on the podium a few times. But it again, and I started doing that later in life, where I think it could be like more of an individual pursuit of my own personal perfection. And I've just found that really pleasurable versus the times I've tried to go win things.
Oh, yeah. Those experiences, this is flow state, back to the science of flow. You know, musicians call it being in the pocket. Athletes call it being in the zone, right? There's lots of phrases that have tried to articulate that complete absorption in the present moment. And when those moments happen, they are not only mystical, like the mystics talk about it too, but there's a full animation of mind and body and action. And that animation and harmony of those three is not only incredibly elusive, but it's incredibly freeing when it takes place. And that goes back to that signal to noise ratio. Like the noise in those environments are like, what are they doing? What are their times? What are they thinking of me? What's happening with, you know, the engineering of why I'm slow on this or braking systems here and there, as opposed to the signal, which is me right here feeling the track and the track feeling me, and then figuring out the nuances. And, you know, there's drivers that I've spent some time with that say, hey, listen, when I'm in that space, I can see bottle caps on the track.
Sure.
Like, have you seen some of that stuff?
Sure.
You know, and like you see grains of the asphalt.
Well, again, not to get too bogged down in it, but the ability of your brain to adapt to 180 miles an hour on a bank turn after a few laps is astounding. Like, you can slow your world down within this thing. And yes, as you say, you're seeing everything, and your brain's kind of making some huge calibrations to keep you alive in that scenario. And it's just a fun experiment, if nothing else.
It's cool that you're into it. It's a forcing function for being present. Danger is.
Well, and I acknowledge too, like, even as I talk about Kobe Bryant or I talk about Bodie Miller, like, I also recognize that Kobe probably biochemically is Kobe Bryant. Like, for him, goofing around in the locker room and being good time Charlie with his teammates, it wouldn't be pleasurable for him for whatever reason. You know, he doesn't desire what Shaq desired. And again, I'm assuming a lot to know a lot about them, but this is just my, you know, armchair assessment of what's going on. You gotta kind of optimize what you really are too, which is something to think about, right?
Yeah, you mentioned this earlier. You said, like, I can't remember how you put it, but it's like to be the best, like that conversation that we're talking about. And there's a part of it that I wanted to add, which is like a really big part of life is knowing how you want to be, not just what you want to do, but how do you want to engage and be you while you're trying to do the minutes that we have. You know, we only get 1440 a day, 1,440 minutes a day. We're spending 960 of them sleeping. You know, like, how do you want to do those minutes, those moments? And those people that condition and train their mind to live in the present moment more often end up experiencing in high performance, because that's where performance takes place. The highest performance happens only in the present moment. And that's also where wisdom is revealed. And so those that spend more time in the present moment experience more of the richness and the texture of life. But our minds are wild.
Yeah.
You know, like,
and back to that training conversation we were having. Who has actually trained their mind? Where does one go for training, for mind training?
Yeah, so people that have spent years to understand how minds work. And so these are, in my best opinion, licensed professionals that have studied the theories and the strategies and the tactics and techniques and understand how the mind works, and has the artistic skill to get you as well, to understand you. So how do you...
Is that a therapist?
Well, it's like usually a psychologist. Doesn't have to be, but they're formally trained.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the ones that are formally trained. Therapists too, you know. All that being said is that there are very mechanical ways that we can all train our mind. You can train confidence. You can train the ability to be calm, breathing training, confidence from self-talk. You can train mindfulness, right? Becoming more aware of your thoughts and actions. You can train optimism, which we believe is at the center of mental toughness. Optimism is the belief that it's going to work out. So if you believe it's going to work out and you condition your mind to believe things work out, then why not stay in it when it's hard? Most people, when it's hard, they eject, and they do these funny little things. I do them too. Like, I'm not trying to get on a pulpit here. Like, we do these funny little things to save ourselves, to save our self-esteem. You know, but optimism is like this fundamental belief it's going to work out. It's not right now going according to plan. So what am I going to do? If I believe it's going to work out, I'm going to stay in it. That's
Yeah.
a really cool thing. Yeah.
So what's interesting to me is I have never been the person that, like, I didn't move to Los Angeles and think I'm going to make it. That really wasn't my modus operandi. I was like, I'm going to prevent a regret. Like, I have to pursue this or I'll be mad at myself. I will feel like I let myself down if I don't pursue it. Yet, I don't think it's going to happen. I'm aware of the numbers. I'm aware of all these things. I was never optimistic about it. But lo and behold, it happened. So I don't know
What was your driver? Like, what was the main driver? I get the regret piece, but then when you got here, what are your primary drivers?
Well, that all had to adjust once I was actually at the party, because I thought I'm not going to enjoy this experience if this is how I'm perceiving it all, right?
Like the regret-based model?
Yes. Yeah, like just preventing a regret or being so ashamed of myself for not trying. I do start from a place of extreme negativity. Just, I think, hardwired that way, or trauma as a kid, whatever the reason is, it's not really super relevant. But when times I have experienced optimism, like you're talking about, is when I've been directing movies and I'm like, no, we're making the day. That we're always going to make the day. It's never an option to me that we're not going to make the day.
What's make the day mean?
Make the day is you're supposed to shoot 5 scenes that day. You have 12 hours of sunlight.
Yeah.
And you'll be on many movie sets where they lose the day. They have to kick a scene to the next day, or they kick it to a week later, right? I don't work that way. I'm like, we will always make our days. And I had one of the ADs at the end of the movie go like, I actually learned something from you, even though I'm 60. Like, you can will some stuff. I witnessed you will some stuff. And I thought, this is so weird because that's not really me. Like, I think of myself as pretty pessimistic and negative.
So, but let's go back, deconstruct that just a little bit, back to the thoughts, words, and actions. Like, you believed it, right?
Oh, 100%.
So your thoughts were like, we're going to figure it out. We're smart. We're going to figure it out. We got some skill here. Your words were like, yeah, okay, we're going to win the day.
Yep.
And then your actions were to back it up. Like, maybe you had to move a little faster. Maybe you had to have some animation. Your posture lean forward.
I'm pushing
So
dollies. I'm like helping people grab cable. Yeah.
That's what's about. So that for me goes back to that thought, words, and action. And when we're around people like that, it's so stimulating.
It's contagious, right?
Yeah, and it can also be malevolent as well, right? It doesn't always have to work in this wonderful way.
Yeah, it can be a guru.
It can be on the other side
yeah.
of things too, and
the Bhagwan.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that idea that we line things up in that respect is contagious for sure.
Yeah.
And the science is not clear there, right? But I feel it. And when I'm in those switched on environments, I'm like, yeah. And like we start, birds, I'm fascinated with how birds move. And like if you've seen a big flock of birds, and one sends a signal and then they all dip and shift. And then another one sends a signal and they all loop and flow.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how far off we are from that, but when we find group flow, man, I love being in those environments.
Yeah, there was I read something recently. I can't remember what book it was in, but it was about that. It was about Spaldings. Is that the ones, the huge flocks, and they all move? And what's interesting is, I know, it was a breakdown of that the brain can't, like, if you boil down a conservative and a liberal's two different points of view, the conservative is very concerned about the individual traditionally, and the liberal is very concerned about society or the group. And they were saying you can't think of both at the same time, basically. You can focus on one or the other. And their example was looking at a big flock of birds. If you look at the individual bird within those flocks, they're doing something unique. Yet if you zoom out, the entire flock is doing something coordinated. So it's kind of at odds with itself. Both things are happening at the same time. And that's kind of what you're striving for in some kind of healthy democracy, is like someone's watching out for the individual and someone's watching out for the flock, and somehow we can make all this happen.
Idealistic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm nodding my head like,
Yeah.
that sounds right. It sounds so good.
Right, but we get bogged down in one or the other viewpoints.
But I don't know if families work that way. So I don't know if communities, I don't know if tribes work that way. In the ideal sense, yes. But this is one of the reasons I think people are attracted to small communities of people that are trying to solve something, that mission-minded approach from a military perspective or sport, or the extraordinary moon mission that people, were fortunate enough to be part of. Like, they talk about how extraordinary that time in their life was because people were working towards something, in a chaotic harmony sometimes, but there was that alignment.
Also, going back to optimism really quick, I do think if you live your life with some element of it will just work out, you subconsciously are making moves to make that happen. Whether or not you are saying them out loud, I think because you've set this standard for yourself, you're doing sort of things
Like
subconsciously. Would you
confirmation
agree?
bias? Or like if you're convinced it's not going to work out, you look for all the things proving it won't work out. Whereas if you believe it's going to, you look for you spot all the things that confirm it will work out.
I guess, for an example, for me, I feel like I'm always going to have enough money. I just always am going to have enough. So I think with that mentality, I am subconsciously doing things to ensure that I do have enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So confirmation bias is like finding the thing. The opposite is another way to look at what you're describing is that people that are anxious, they actually live in a more dangerous world because they're finding things to demonstrate that they're not crazy. They're finding
Confirm
and
they're not.
and interpreting things. So your model, like that, I'm going to always have enough money, would be a basic statement about your ability to earn or your ability to not spend frivolously. And so it
Right.
doesn't mean that you're going to be a billionaire.
No.
It means that you understand how to take care of yourself in a modern society and not be above your means so that you're
Right.
not putting, like, no, that's a general kind of core statement or belief system that you hold of yourself, which would actually be, here's a very fancy phrase, part of a person who has high self-efficacy. So efficacy is a scientific phrase for power.
Yeah.
Like it's not, your statement's not about money.
Right. But it's just funny because I would not, I'm not doing those things purposefully. I'm not saying like, okay, so I'm going to be careful here this month or but I think I am doing those things subconsciously because I've set a standard for myself that I'm going to have enough, basically.
Yeah. that's
So I
cool.
think if you like set some things in your brain, sometimes then your actions will sort of follow that, or maybe not. Maybe that's not. Maybe that's scary to say because then,
Well, it's a little pop psychology, that thought.
yeah,
But that doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means we can't quite find the evidence. But like I think you would recognize if you're teaching a child how to shoot a hoop, shoot a basket, right? That we wouldn't want that person, we wouldn't coach them and say to them, hey, whatever you do, just don't miss.
right,
We would say, hey, focus on the back of the rim,
Yeah.
yeah,
right? Like see it going in. Like we would say that. Why is that?
Oh,
Because we create some images in our mind.
right.
And then our body tries to figure out how to make those images work. It's a little pop psych. I'm telling you, though, that this is where I get on the fringe a little bit from science. And I go, but I don't need a whole lot of evidence because I know that it works that way for me, too.
right.
Yeah.
I can tell you this fun thing that parallels that. And I also race off-road, which is, in the desert. And there's two rules in off-road racing, which is if you come around a turn and you are heading straight for a boulder, you have to look at something else.
Don't look at the boulder.
Yeah, I mean, your
body's
brain
gonna
wants
think- yeah.
so bad to stare at that boulder to make sure you don't hit it, but you will ensure that you're going to hit it if that's what you're staring at. So it's like, it's this weird muscle memory you have to force yourself to redirect. If you're going to hit it, you're going to hit it, but you don't need to be looking at it, So, but when you look somewhere else, some miracle happens and you end up there.
We don't know exactly how it works, right? And
Right.
there's probably some scientists that are in some research I'm not familiar with that has it sorted out, but we're not there yet as far as I know. But I 1,000% agree. Like
Yeah.
we see it with our kids. We see it in you said off-road?
Off-road racing, yeah.
Yeah.
The other principle is when in trouble, full throttle.
It's like skiing. Lean forward. You lean back, you're out of control. Like there's a lot of those things in sport and life as well. Be aggressive. You take a good chop at the ball in baseball rather than hesitate.
Yeah.
We coach those things as well.
Yeah, all very counterintuitive stuff.
In some ways.
Against your instincts in the moment. Can we talk a couple of what I would call candy? So when you worked with Felix, it's public knowledge that his specific issue was he was claustrophobic?
Yes.
He was.
Yeah, about 4 years into the project, the whole project was being scrubbed. And they had all the technology in place. His fitness was on point. They had all the bright minds in the room. And he just couldn't figure out how to stay in the suit long enough. And so he was creating a claustrophobic response to being in the spacesuit.
Okay, I can really relate to this. I feel like I don't have a lot of phobias, but claustrophobia is one of them. So what was your, like, where do you start?
Well, I mean, I could give you the specifics of it, but in general, where we start is like, what do you want? And that's a big question. You know, like if you answer that question for yourself in life right now, because that was a moment of crisis, you know, but if you're not in a moment of crisis and you ask yourself, like, what do I really want in life? And then get honest with yourself. So it started there because maybe he needed my help to get out of the projects. Sure. Maybe he needed my help, you know, to go further into the project, but we had to start there.
Yeah.
And this is public again, but his response was, in a nutshell, it's like, it'll be more painful for me to walk away from this project than it would be to go into the project and die. I would rather go and die, but I literally don't know what's happening, that I can't stay in the suit that I need to be in.
Right.
And so he's willing to do whatever it took to unlock that. And so then we just got into the psychology, like how to train his mind to unlock that conditioned response to his suit.
To like disconnect it? Is that
to embrace it?
Oh, to embrace it.
Yeah, to embrace it.
So is it like I have a very thin understanding of what I think is called immersion therapy, right? Is this like OCD folks they have a fear of something, they'll make them go handle trash, like literally go through a dumpster, this kind of thing. Is it in that same world at all?
Yeah. So the model is flooding or systematic desensitization. Immersion is a nice phrase for it. But the science is, the first thing that we do is you build a model. Let's just make it simple and say it's 1 to 10. So a 1 on this model it's like steps of intensity. So 1 is low intensity, 10 is high intensity. So 10 is holding the snake.
Okay.
And a 1 is thinking about driving to the place where you might hold a snake. Okay?
Yeah.
And then an 8 is like you're walking in the room and you see the snake. That's like an 8. Okay. So you build this model of intensity of the fear response. And then we get really clear on what that, make sure that that's right and calibrate the accuracy of it. Then we pull off of that and backfill any of the psychological skills, the mental skills that will help you or the person be in control or command of themselves in those moments. In
Each
those
specific step.
Yeah. So what is that? Well, we're going to do some breathing training. Okay. We're going to do some self-talk training. We're going to increase your awareness of your self-talk and your breathing. So that's mindfulness, right? We're going to have some strategies and tools that you can use your mind to actually bite down or relax even more. When I say bite down, like grit it out, like to stay in it, and then eventually get to relaxation. We're going to use a concept of locus of control that, listen, you're in control of yourself and you don't have to go to the next level, but you can't control what the snake's going to do, right? So this is about controlling you. And then we make a commitment. The person makes a commitment that as we start the progression and we're in level 1, that we don't get to go to level 2 until that person has full command. So what happens for most people is that they get somewhere on that track, that 1 to 10 track. Let's call it, they see the spider, they see the snake, if you will. And what do? They tighten up, right? And like the full flight, fright, freeze mechanisms in our body, in our brain, activate, and then we leave. So now what we've just done is paired an awful internal experience with the spider. I'm sorry, with the snake. We're using snake metaphor. And then we run away from it. So now we've strengthened that response. So we make the commitment that you're not going to leave. You're going to use all the psychological tools that we've been working on, and you're going to exercise and train them prior to getting into these conditions, right? The level 8s and level 10s. And you're going to stay there until you figure it out. Now, you don't have to get to a level 9, but you're going to stay to level 8.
Right.
And you ain't leaving. So that's what it's about.
It's kind of baby steps, right? It's like, it's also, again, back to AA, it's a little bit one day at a time. It's like, look at the thing in front of you. You got to learn to shut your mind off from the future, from broadcasting into the future or projecting into the future, right? If you can really keep it incremental, people can kind of do incredible things. Yeah. And I would just say the important part of that aspect is training the mental skills, training those skills ahead of time
So it's not just thrusting somebody at the edge of the cliff that's afraid of things and say, hey, figure it out.
Yeah.
I'll see you later.
Yeah.
It's like, no, give them the skills of breathing and self-talk and awareness of that. And like,
Well, a more morbid version of this is I read this fascinating book on killing. I don't know if you ever heard of that book.
Grossman and
Yeah.
Sybil.
Oh, you have, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it goes through the whole history of guys in World War I. They would find dead, and they were holding their guns, and they had never fired it. And this is when they discovered, we've thought of this binary response to fear being flight or fight, but really, if you look at the animal kingdom, 90% of conflicts are resolved with posturing and submitting, right?
Yeah.
So you have way more wiring to either submit when someone postures or posture and that person submits. And what they figured out is that when the soldiers were running from trench to trench, their reptilian brain was seeing posturing. They heard a loud noise, and then the response was to submit, to freeze. Like, don't kill me. I'm freezing. You win. And so through training, and they have data on all this, by Vietnam, they've figured out how to train these guys to fire no matter what.
Yeah, it started the Civil War.
Oh, okay.
And the Civil War, part of the first war, like to your point, that they found all the bayonets, like the rifles with like 3-4 bullets in it.
Yes.
Is that there was an overwhelming response to seeing your cousin, right? To seeing the human that looks just like you.
Yeah.
And then there was a little bit of that removal in World War II, but there was some conditioning that they were also engaging on, if I remember correctly, where
Making them the other.
Yeah, objectifying them.
Yes,
and then
calling them Jerry's.
Instead of practicing shooting against hay bales, they were practicing against like things that looked like humans, right? So the desensitization to like killing.
Yes.
Right?
And then also just establishing muscle memory in response so that when your thinking goes offline, which was great at pointing out, like at a certain blood pressure and heart rate, your brain shifts from frontal lobe thinking to midbrain, reptilian brain, and now you're not really making decisions. You're like in instinct mode.
Yeah, it's I love that like the nuances of how the mind and brain are working together.
It's so fascinating, isn't it? Because it
really
kind
is.
of, because all humans have a desire to retroactively understand why they've done things. So just getting a piece of the puzzle like that, you can kind of go back in your memory and go like, oh yeah, that's why when that bully was doing this, that's weird. I didn't run or fight. I just fucking froze.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, you've only been presented 2 options. And you're like, well, what did I do? I don't even know how to make sense of that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, submission happens more than we think, right? More than people want to talk about, because fight is in some ways cool. It's acceptable. Running away is like, I took the high ground. But freezing and submission is like rolling over and showing your underbelly.
Yes.
And so there's a social acceptance or deference that comes with that, but it's at the cost of dignity.
Oh, yes. You know, when it blew my fucking mind, and I was like, oh, wow, this is the aspect of the Me Too conversation that no one's talking about. We were watching a story on TV about the owner of this chain of restaurants in New York, and he had some allegations against him. This woman was explaining what happened to her in the car, which was she got in the car with her boss. He leaned over to kiss her and maybe touched her boob, and she froze. And what I was saying is, the guy's a creep, but what I had never considered in my life of someone who pursued women is that I might not get any signal. They might freeze out of fear of this situation. And there's no signals to really go on. And guys need to know that. Like, I don't know that. I'm expecting either no thank you, move away, I don't want to kiss, something verbal, maybe something even nonverbal and physical, but I've never considered someone might just freeze. And I think it's a high percentage of people that just freeze.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a real brain strategy, to deal with something that is threatening.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there's something wrong with the other person in that experience that doesn't recognize the freeze.
Like, I was just about to say that.
Like, if you can't figure out, I'm not talking about you, Dax, but like if you can't figure out that someone is like completely rigid, like there is a predatorial nature about that is still,
especially if you're in an environment where you're trying to breed intimacy and somebody is totally rigid, that's a good sign that they're not excited to keep going forward.
Yes. Okay. But just to be provocative and hypothetical, I could see you leaning over to kiss a girl and she's kind of still, and you go like, she's never done this before. She's confused about what she's supposed to do next. Not necessarily she doesn't want to, just, maybe this is new for her. I mean, not in this scenario. It's like a waitress who's 30 years old, whatever. Obviously not that situation. But I'm talking like 2 16-year-olds or something. I could see where you'd fill in the blank of something that was wrong.
Right, but then you could just say, if you're starting to feel like something's a little something, you could just say, is this okay? Yeah.
Yes,
just do a quick check-in.
Yes, but again,
it's not going to ruin it.
It wouldn't hurt us to let kids know that this is a response. Like it's just something you've not been warned about, you're not thinking of.
Well, 2 16-year-olds doesn't have that layer, that troubling
power
layer
dynamic.
Power,
Exactly.
There's that part too.
Yes.
But you're right on. I think it's like, I've never had the thought that it would be important to talk about that as a natural response to stress. But it is actually meant to be a response to threat, not just stress. So stress would be more about a flushed face. And then threat is like attack, run, or freeze, a la submit.
Yeah.
And so...
And I think evolutionarily, right, freezing is, most animals have bad eyesight. And if you don't move, they can't see you. Like there's a really well-worn reason that you're basically just being dead still in hopes that they lose sight of you.
And, I think that you can also map back to when you're a child and say, what is my natural response? When you heard a sound under your bed or in your closet, like, what did you do? Did you jump up and go see? Did you run away from it? Or did you get really quiet and stop breathing?
Right.
Or
put your magic sheet over your head.
Yeah. So that would be a little bit more like freeze. Maybe it's a little bit of a flee. What did you do?
I think I definitely froze.
You more of the just be still.
If there's like something.
Although she had an
happening.
amazing plan in her head. Tell them what your plan was.
Yeah, I had plans that I never executed. But I had plans that if there was a kidnapper, I could tell there was somebody in the house. I would get under my bed and then attach myself to the frame of the bed so that when he looked under, he'd see emptiness, but I was really in there just hanging on to the top. Like
amazing
some sort of
what
animal.
we do with imagination.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I was young, but still, I still kind of think that could work.
Sounds about right.
I'd love to put it to the test. So my very last question for you is just, you obviously do work. You've done work with Olympians. You've done work with the Seahawks. You've done work with Felix for the RedBull Stratos. You also do work with companies, right? Like you work with Microsoft. So when you go to companies, what is it that you're expected to help them with?
Okay, so there's a little bit of a backstory is that Coach Carroll and I, head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, we were heading into our first Super Bowl. And we're in the hallway one day at the training center, and he comes up like super animated and switched on. He goes, Mike, can you feel it? I'm like, yeah. And he was talking about the culture, like how alive the culture was, how many noses were pointed in the same direction, and the real work, the difficult challenges were happening, and it was like the good stuff. And without hesitation, he says, do you think anyone outside of sport would be interested in what we're doing? And without hesitation, he said, let's just write it down. So what does that mean? Like he wrote down, it was a back of a napkin almost, right? He's had 40 years in sport and I had 20 years in sport. And his is about how to align and create the methodologies to support a culture where people can flourish. So culture-based, the systems and ecosystems there. And then my stuff is really about how do you train from a psychological perspective, the people that want to be their very best, how do they condition and train their mind?
Yeah.
And you put 1 and 1 together and it felt like it was 11. Like it was just super dynamic. And so we wrote it down, put them together, created a short little list of like how we would do it in another environment. And then I'll leave out some of the part of the story, but we had a conversation with Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. And he was 4 weeks into his job and he's like, man, these are the same principles of purpose and meaning and flourishing and conditioning one mind to be open and learn and progressive in the way that they organize their internal life and their outer life to get this harmony and just radical work ethic to go be mission-minded in life. And so they have 180,000 people that report up to the
Jeez.
to the CEO.
I'm
That's
sorry. For me
crazy.
personally, fuck that. That's the last
So
thing I want to
much.
worry about is 180,000 people.
Think
I mean,
about-
you're
think
nearly a
about that.
president of a country or a.
It's
Yeah.
outrageous.
Yeah.
And their mission is beautiful to help every person and organization in the world achieve more.
Uh-huh.
Like they're really about it. And so, anyways, that turned into full day trainings that we were offering people. And I was coaching up at that point some Olympians and sports psychs to help with the mission to help them. And eventually we've reached 30,000 people at 8 hours a person. They've committed over 240,000 human hours to train their minds so that the people in their organizations have a command of themselves, will work better together, can be mission minded, can truly have purpose and meaning and flourish in life. And so eventually what they taught us to do is to, and they showed us how to do it, is to build an online curriculum. And so now inside of Microsoft, we've got this online training.
Uh-huh.
And then for the first time ever, we've brought that out now into public access. And so it's available. It's an 8-week online course for anybody.
Now, let me ask you a really simple, cynical question about that. I totally understand people wanting to change their life, which is very hard to do. For me, it took life or death stakes for me to be willing to change. I can see doing it for a Super Bowl trophy. I can see doing it for a gold medal. If you're going to go into Staples and try to get that team fired up about the mission, isn't it much harder to get people to want the outcome of we got to sell 6% more office supplies this quarter? I mean, it's harder, right?
No, that's not cynical. That's real.
Okay.
The reason people change is pain.
Right.
The reason people grow is because they get uncomfortable. And to help people get uncomfortable is really hard.
Yeah.
That's a very difficult thing to do. Or if you, again, go back to athletics for a minute, is that the whole day is designed to get uncomfortable, to get up to the edge so that you can really learn and grow. Okay. So to go into the business frame and say,
Because even Microsoft, those people have a potential to have stock that'll be worth $15 million.
And
even there's a huge carrot,
Oh, there really is.
Yeah.
All that being said is our first assessment of, maybe the first 1,000 people we worked with is that they're working as hard as humans can work. They're about as tired as humans can be. And that is painful.
Mm-hmm.
So we address the pain.
Uh-huh.
Hey, what is this like?
Yeah.
Here's our observation. What's happening? So we did that deep work. And it started with Satya, the CEO, way upstream. And he stopped, 2 full days with his senior team to say, hey, let's get our philosophy, our individual personal philosophies right. Let's figure out how we're defining high performance and successful ways of living for ourselves. Let's train ourselves from a mindfulness approach. And, he's on public record. He just wrote a book. Satya wrote a book. And this is sound like I'm going to brag for a minute. So I am, I guess. But he put us at pages 4, 5, and 6 of his book about how he's switched around that culture. He's done it, not us.
Yeah.
He's done it. And he's done it. He might be the most significant CEO of modern times. What he's done is radical.
Mm.
And so he's made this beautiful commitment that we've been fortunate enough to be part of to actually train some of the most hardworking, brilliant people in high tech right now to live in the present moment more often.
Well, here's a counterintuitive thing, again, that I was forced to learn through sobriety, which is, at least the program I'm in demands that sobriety is number one, because without sobriety, there's no family. Without sobriety, there's no career. Without sobriety, there's nothing. It is literally the foundation for all that which can come on top of it. And I would imagine it's hard to convince people who are very inclined to work hard and work a lot to let them know that if you take care of that outside human, the you, everything can be built on top of that. And in fact, there's no real flourishing unless that human's taken care of before the employee.
That's exactly it. And one of the, I think, most powerful statements we get after is that when somebody walks away, whether it's an online training or in person, and they say, this is why I love working at Microsoft, is because this type of engagement, I'm better. And I'm going to be better at work.
Yes.
But I'm better. I'm now, I feel like I can be a better parent, better lover, better spouse, better friend. It's not complicated. The mind is complicated.
Yeah.
The brain, which is different than the mind, the brain is the tissue. The brain is complicated. But the idea like to organize your inner life, to have great command, and to organize your outer world, to have some alignment, it is not that overwhelming. Now, to practice it on a regular basis, day in and day out, whether it's optimism, confidence, breathing, mindfulness, recovery, that's one of the kind of core pillars is like, do you recover properly? In elite sport, we talk about recovery way more than we talk about working hard. Because you know what's happening right now, though, is the hustle hard mentality. I'm so fatigued by it. I don't know if you guys are.
Yeah.
You know,
give 150%.
Yeah, someone else is working, so you better work too. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God, that's not sustainable, and it's not even fulfilling.
Right.
So we talk a lot about the art and science of recovery. Yeah.
Well, Michael, you're fascinating. I'm really glad you came in to talk about this.
You say that to everyone.
No,
we've had a couple lying.
This has been a really good experience for me. So thank you.
Thank you. Me too.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Come back. And now my favorite part of the show, the fact check with my soulmate, Monica Padman. Monica checks the facts. Monica checks the facts out, and another fact down, and another facts down. Monica checks the facts. Hey, she's gonna check those too. Monica checks the facts out. Monica checks the facts.
Wow, that was great.
2 different folks recommended that song, and I can't believe we haven't done it yet.
I wondered if that was it from your own brain.
It felt too good, right, to be just something that I came up with.
Well, no,
To be honest, it's okay.
I didn't say that.
Well, I've been really kind of stumbling my way through some of the most recent ones, so it would be, it'd totally be understandable that I got that from somebody. Okay, here we go. Yeah, it was from Instagram, and it was someone whose account name is YRDBYRD. Yardbird. Oh, Yardbird. I always say Yardbird.
You do?
Yes. I always call chicken Yardbird. You've heard me say that. Oh, this is very moist Yardbird. I said that on Sunday after Mother prepared the moist chicken.
I didn't hear you say that.
You didn't?
No, sorry.
You probably couldn't hear over the sound of your own chewing.
I couldn't. It was very tasty. Yardbird.
You were masticating that Yardbird with, the people with miso would have been jumping out windows.
Oof, they would not have liked it. Well, anyway, thank you, Yardbird.
Yeah. Now, I didn't stick to their script exactly.
Okay.
They were hoping I would say, and another one gone, and another one gone. Monica checks the facts. Hey, she's going to check you too. Monica checks the facts.
Okay.
So I kind of went off script, but it still worked.
Yeah, it still worked. It was still nice.
And I bet they couldn't spell the...
That's hard to spell.
Yeah. How would you even, for $1 billion, do you think you could spell that in a way that someone would be able to read it?
Yeah.
And know what to do?
You would probably write it A-Y.
I.
No.
Mighty.
A dash. And then you just keep writing A's.
Okay, great.
I figured it out.
And that concludes Michael Gervais.
No.
I was just thinking, what if we never got to any effect? Oh, I'm so glad I just thought of this. Big blunder again on our part. We keep doing this.
I
But whatever.
have 2 to say.
Oh, you have 2 to say? Okay. But we're owning them. We're owning them as quick as we can in real time. So,
yeah.
You know what's funny is because I listened back to it and I was like, why did that slip past me? Because I know who Steve Austin is from $6 Million Man because I watched that show.
Yeah.
He was played, of course, by Lee Majors, who was also the Fall Guy, which was my all-time favorite show. Anyways, in the fact check, it's kind of, there's no setup for it. You just, all of a sudden you go, Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I go, yeah, Stone Cold Steve Austin. You go, I know him. And I go, oh, yeah.
Well, okay, because for the people who just listen, they don't need to hear a whole 10-minute thing about why we talked about it. They just heard it 5 minutes ago.
I know. I'm only explaining why I didn't catch it is for me, I hadn't just listened to it 10 minutes ago.
Right.
So you go Stone Cold Steve Austin. I just went straight to oh, do you know who he is? And then we have a conversation about what wrestlers we would know or not know.
Yeah. Did he say $6 Million Man?
He did, yeah.
Okay, that's what I didn't hear.
Nor does that title of a show probably mean anything to you.
No, I do know it because they mentioned it on Friends. But I wouldn't have. I would have heard that I may not have put two and two together that it was the same person.
They both have that name. It does beg the question, did Stone Cold take his name from the $6 million man?
He probably did.
Yeah, if we ever meet him, we should ask him.
I didn't know he said that. And then after when people were getting upset, I thought, oh, maybe everyone just assumed, like, how do people know which Steve Austin he's talking about?
Well, he did
But
say the
said
TV
it.
show, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But wrestling is a TV show.
Sure, it is. But I think he said $6 million man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that case.
Anywho, that was one. Just tiny little
That was
blunder.
one of people were outraged by that.
You know what's really funny? I will say it was a poignant moment for me because really the outrage, it was your mistake. So to me, I didn't read it as outrage. And I actually had the awareness to see this. Like, so I was reading about it and a lot of people were vocal about it. And I realized when it was about you, I was able to just see like, oh, they're just pointing out like, hey, you should know. I think he was actually talking about this. But when it's my mistake and I read all those comments, I think they're outraged. I had like a moment where I was like, oh, it feels differently when it's about Monica than it is about me.
That's interesting.
Like when I shit the bed on the Mormon thing and you were reading those, you probably didn't see them as direct attacks on me as much as I did.
Well, except it depends on what we're talking about. Like Steve Austin, I don't think people care that much about.
It's not people's religion. Well, although it's probably some people's religion.
Well, the wrestling is probably
Yes,
some people's
yes.
religion, not the $6 million man.
That's
well,
true.
maybe. I don't know. I don't want to speak
hard to
for
know
everybody.
who's-
Can't. But when you're talking about something serious, like the second one I'm about to say.
Oh, there's another one?
Yeah. Charlottesville. This was in Adam Pally's episode. You say Charlottesville, South Carolina.
Oh.
And it's Charlottesville, Virginia.
Oops.
And then I do a whole fact. Then I like give facts about South Carolina. So we really I
we really
totally
shit the bed.
didn't. Yeah.
Started with my misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And then we built more misunderstanding on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You know,
we are very sorry about that.
yeah. So I guess you know what I do is when I think of Charlottesville, I the first thing I think is not Charlotte, North Carolina. That's where my head goes.
Okay.
Like when I'm trying to remember the name of Charlottesville, I stop first at Charlotte, North Carolina. And then I go, no, it's not even in North Carolina. It's South Carolina.
Oh, interesting.
It's Virginia.
It's
okay.
Virginia.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the meat of that, though, was definitely Jews will not replace us.
right.
I think that's the most.
But people in South Carolina probably don't feel like it's fair that they were made responsible for something that evil they didn't do.
Now, okay, well, I will just say to that, nor were the people in Virginia. So it's not like no one's ever saying that the state of Virginia, these people traveled from all over the country to come be a part of that.
Yes, that's right.
That fundraiser or whatever it was.
That's right. But we did seem ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
And we were.
We were, and when all we can do is correct our mistakes.
That's right.
We're talking fast and loose, and things we're gonna
Things
fuck up.
slip through.
They do.
I'm listening to a lot of hours.
You are too many. I would
It's
argue.
a lot of hours, and things slip through the cracks.
Well, it
and I'm
becomes
sorry.
white noise at a certain point, right?
I try not to let it, but clearly it does sometimes.
Well, they've had studies where they prove that the people watching those security monitors, that no one can actually pay attention to those TVs for more than 40 minutes or something. There's some statistic on it. I'm not making an exact claim. I don't want to get yelled at. Just you get the point I'm making.
Yeah.
So I have to imagine the same goes for my voice and you. You know, how much can you really hear of it and still pay attention? Attention.
Well,
Sexual
yeah.
attention.
Well, really, it's just that I can't sit for 5 hours. I have to be doing other things too. And sometimes if I'm doing something else and I lose my attention.
Well, if you
it diverts my
multitask.
attention. If I multitask. But I have to multitask.
Yeah.
So,
I was pitching a plan for you and it just got annoying. I realized that I sounded annoying when I was doing it. It's very hard to suggest to somebody a time management strategy. It feels very like a personal attack, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't feel like a personal attack, but it does feel like,
I don't understand
maybe
what you're
you
going
just
through.
don't. No, you don't understand, but unless you're doing that same thing, how could you really know how to time manage that?
Well, my argument was, why don't you just do 1 hour blocks? So you do an hour of editing and you do not look at your phone. And then you take 15 minutes and look at your phone and then you do another hour block. I just wonder, I'm thinking out loud that you might do both things faster if you did it that way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But then as I was saying it, I realized if someone was trying to manage my time for me, I would be pretty defensive or triggered or feeling controlled.
No, I don't. I don't think you're trying to control. I think you're just trying to be helpful.
Always.
Yeah.
I've yet to try to do one thing that was aimed at hurting your feelings or destroying you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's coming. I'll do it. It's in the future.
Don't do
But I
it.
haven't yet.
Yeah, there's no point in even having this conversation because there's too many factors and there's too many things that are not interesting for people to hear.
Right.
But thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah, you know what people do like hearing about? Sex tension.
They do?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Don't you think? I mean, that's why everyone's so interested in talking about Gaga and Coop on the Academy Awards because you see that level of sex tension,
Sexual tenny.
Yeah, and your
They had an
imagination
immense amount.
Ooh, I'll just call it chemistry because I don't know if it's sex tension or not. I know nothing about it, but a lot of chem.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really palpable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it.
Chem tension.
And I liked it. All right. Well, so we knocked out those 2 old facts for everyone.
There'll probably be some in this one. So
Yeah. Get ready.
Yeah.
Just prepare yourself.
Yeah, I guess that's the headline is, hey, we've
We're
not claimed we're perfect. No.
Yeah, we're not perfect.
Even like with the safety mechanism of a fact
I
check,
know.
it makes me a little sympathetic to like news outlets. Like,
Yeah.
of course they're fucking getting it wrong. Are you kidding? They're giving information out 24 hours a day.
I know. But which is fine if you get it wrong, but you just have to own it.
Yeah.
That's the part where it gets tricky, where people are just saying lies purposefully. By the way, we're not saying anything purposefully wrong.
That's
Everything's
true.
an accident.
That's true.
But people will say things to try to coerce people into thinking something, and then they don't own that.
Fake news.
Fake news.
Hashtag fake news.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Michael Gervais
Yeah.
was great.
Oh, I was thrilled with him.
Yeah, he was so fun.
Yeah, and that's somebody that
interesting.
Wobby Wob went out and procured on his own
Well, he met him before
was
on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast.
inside of you, and he was wowed by him.
Yeah.
And
Brought him into our fold.
yeah, and it was great.
Yeah, he was very smart.
You know, he passed the test because, you know, anyone like that, I'm a little bit cynical of. Like,
Okay,
this
why?
guy. Well, part of me is like, can you really instruct people on how to be more efficient or, optimize their performance? Is that real? Can one person talk someone into optimization? So I'm always like, 15% of me is like, this person's a shyster. Kind of how he felt about life coaches. I'll extend that
You
even
think that about psychologists?
psychologists who are claiming that they can guide you towards peak performance. I don't know. That just
okay.
seems a little
Interesting.
suspicious, Tench.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But all that to say, after like 40 minutes of staring into his eyes, I'm like, no, this guy is legitimately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally disagree.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that you can definitely impart positive attitude. I think that's really a lot of it.
Yeah.
It's like training your brain for positive thinking.
But I think the most poignant topic that was covered was actually how one finds their purpose. Because why even tell? I mean, the bigger problem, probably other than actualizing your goals, is that so many people don't know what their goal is. I think that's the most ubiquitous problem.
Yeah.
So that's neat that he has that part of the equation.
Yeah.
There was also a lot of sex tension.
How can you tell? No.
Yeah, between Michael and I.
Oh. How do you say that? He was very cute.
Yeah.
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 I forgot.
Of course.
Why? Of course.
Because of
I got
course,
distracted by his
because
cute face.
I turn every single conversation into something about looks or sex.
Right, and then
And
I
it's
get
distracting.
distracted.
Yes. I'm finding purpose.
Oh yeah. Do we really think there are steps for finding your purpose? I kind of feel
Well,
like
I'm not a performance psychologist, but I have some like simple guidelines I think I would urge people to think about. One of them is the thing I would be most conscious of during your self-reflection of what your purpose and goals are they status motivated? I think if you start by weeding out goals that are solely status oriented, that's a good start. To find an actual purpose that'll be fulfilling if you accomplish it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't really think that's the problem people have. Like, I think some people really have just a problem figuring out what they're going to be doing.
Passionate about.
Yeah. I don't know. A part of me wonders if passion is something that we've like placed on that's not fully necessary for a purpose.
No, I bet anybody who went K through 12 had classes where they were like, oh, I enjoy this, whether it was pottery or welding or any number of things. And by the way, the purpose doesn't have to generate income or generate anything, right? So clearly out of the fucking onslaught of options they give you K through 12, right? Of all the different topics, you got your singing, you got your your gym, all this shit. One of those things sticks out to people.
Maybe.
You know?
Yeah, probably. But I think the
majority of people had a class they liked.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily always give you purpose. Like, even if you follow that thing, like sometimes that fizzles out or that becomes not fun for you anymore. Also, purpose, in my opinion, like the people that have a tough time are people who just don't know what their day-to-day is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean by purpose. You need a reason to get up, I think. I think there needs to be something happening in your day-to-day that makes you need to wake up and do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And even if that thing is not something you're crazy about, it's still something that you have to do. Somebody's holding you accountable for it. I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I have a different perspective on it now than I would have had 15 years ago, which is I don't have many, if any, career aspirations anymore. And so my getting up is I'm literally trying to have fun like I had in 7th grade. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to ride dirt bikes with my friends. I'm trying to be with the kids, make me feel that way. Having friendships and being social and having a Game of Thrones party makes me feel that way. Like I've now gone off of what I'm trying to accomplish. And now I'm just trying to capture 12 years old again for the rest of my life.
Right. That's
great. My purpose.
Yeah. But I don't think you would be able to have that unless you
had accomplished that other stuff.
Things. Accomplishment is not the right word. It literally be every day you have to go walk your neighbor's dog. It doesn't have to be some massive accomplishment or some career goal, but there needs to be a reason for something for you to do every day.
The entire day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You do have that. You have children and people that require that.
But also, I don't want to miss the party. That's my thing. I got to get up because I don't want to miss the party, and I'm gonna manifest the party. It's gonna be a party, whether we go to a funeral or wherever.
Right.
It's time to party.
Okay.
All right.
Why are you yelling at me about your party? What is that?
What the fuck?
What is it?
Earache relief? Who's been sitting here? Why is there earache relief in my lazy boy?
Is it yours?
Some motherfucker with an earache broke into the attic. This is a clue about who's stealing our water because whoever's stealing our water, they're putting the water in their ear. And then they're using earache relief to get it out. Why is that in my lazy?
It's definitely not yours.
No, I was looking for my chewing tobacco.
Oh,
so I'm trying to chew as much tobacco as possible since I'm quitting after the ranch wraps.
Okay.
It's a lofty goal, but I'm trying to accomplish it.
Okay, great.
You notice my skin's peeling off right now.
I didn't notice. I don't notice it.
I was filming yesterday on the ranch, and midway through, I noticed all my fucking skin's peeling off the brow ridge.
I can't tell.
I'm so gross sometimes.
No, you're not.
I am.
No, you're not.
If you didn't like me as much and you just saw me at Starbucks, you're like, oh my God, that guy has brow ridge dander.
No one would ever say that. Probably what people would say is like, ooh, that person has sexual tension with the barista.
And his skin's peeling off.
That guy with the skin that's peeling off has
he's too hot for his own skin.
Yeah.
Sexual tennis shoes?
Okay, I haven't done any facts yet.
Okay.
So you
My favorite kind of fact check.
You said sports psychology is niche. Now, I tried to find how many sports psychologists there are in the United States, and I could not find it. So I think that means it is niche.
I think so.
Because there would be some statistic about it.
Also, let's just think about the people that require a sports psychologist. It's not like if you're a weekend golfer, you need to go see a psychologist or a weekend tennis player. So you're talking about only professional athletes would need one.
Right. Well, or remember, they used him in Microsoft.
Sure.
Not necessarily. But sports psychology started to become visible at the Olympic Games in 1984.
Ooh, was that L.A.?
Oh, I think so.
Ooh.
When the Olympic teams began to hire sports psychologists for their athletes, and in 1985, when the U.S. team employed their first permanent sports psychologist. For the Summer Olympics in 1996, the U.S. already had over 20 sports psychologists working with their athletes.
20.
In 96.
Oh, my God. I bet the number's 300 now.
Probably.
Every athlete has their own psychologist.
They might. They should.
They need it.
I know.
So many of those things are fucking all mental. Like their body can do whatever their body can do. And then some days they can't jump. And some days they can.
It's true. It's crazy.
It's a mind fuck.
It is.
They have a bunch of sex tension with their own mind.
They do. Okay. RedBull Stratos. He said he jumped 130,000 feet, 128,100 feet.
Okay. We can round up.
Well,
maybe.
no.
Yeah, no.
RedBull Stratos was a space diving project involving Austrian skydiver Felix Baumgartner. On October 14th, 2012, Felix flew approximately 39 kilometers into the whoever wrote this is European because they wrote on 14 October 2012. I had to do some fast changing in my brain.
It was quick. I didn't even perceive that.
Thank you, but they wrote kilometers.
It could be Canadian too.
Ugh.
We love Canada and Canadians.
Approximately 39 kilometers.
Now, you know why that's a good joke? Is universally the Canadians are loved around the world. When you go
we're punching
backpacking through
up.
Europe, everyone puts Canadian flags in their backpack as to not be mistaken for Americans.
know.
So it's a really funny joke to make because no one would ever say, "Ooh, Canadians, yuck."
Yeah, exactly. It was a big joke.
It was.
39 kilometers into the stratosphere over New Mexico, United States. Another giveaway that they had to write United States. In a helium balloon before free falling in a pressure suit and then parachuting to Earth.
Woo!
Listen, why do I not know about this?
I don't know why.
Does everyone know about it?
I certainly did. Yeah.
I'm not.
But I'm pretty dialed into the whole Red Bull extreme world
true.
more than you.
That's true. I guess
If they had thrown a cheerleader out of this capsule, you'd know all about
I'd
it.
probably know. I'm not very clued in, I guess.
Anymore.
I'm not. Spending all my time answering these facts.
Right.
That I'm not really looking at any other facts, any other real life things. So after the Charlottesville incident, I started feeling like,
Not the actual incident, but just us talking about it.
our mini
Yes.
incident.
Okay, yes.
The non-racist Charlottesville incident.
Yeah.
I thought I got to be really extra diligent about these facts. So I fact checked, was Phil Jackson the coach of Chicago and LA? That's what you said. And he was.
Yes, he
But
was.
I never know what could be wrong.
Oh, boy, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It was. And he's a basketball coach.
Yeah. He was also a player. Very tall man.
Really? How tall? 7 feet.
No, 6'7" or above. But Wobby Wob do some.
6'8".
There we go. 6'8".
6'8".
Yeah, he's a monster. I've been sitting next to him standing, and I was shocked at the height.
That's so much taller than me.
Yes.
I mean,
well, you're 4'11" plus
no,
6'8",
tell them.
so
Tell
that's-
the people.
We got to post that video.
Yeah, we'll post
Monica
a video.
had I got my comeuppance, and you are 5 foot 1/2 inch.
That's right. I was
Yeah.
exactly right.
You were. And there's a pretty funny video that Kristen shot while I was measuring you.
Yeah, we'll post it.
Yeah.
But just so the people know, I am 5 feet and a half inch.
Right. So you are 1 foot 7.5 inches shorter than Coach Phil Jackson.
Yeah.
I'd love to see you guys
What about
engaged in coitus.
sexual tenny.
I would love, there's nothing I'd like more than to walk in and see you guys in the missionary position. So his gigantic body laying on top of your tiny body. I just imagine that your head would be around his chest and your toes would be around his kneecaps.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh, would that be a sight?
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
He was the president of the Knicks, too, for like 5 seasons.
Oh, that's great. And he also was dating and or married Jeannie Buss, daughter of Jerry Buss, the owner of the Lakers.
Oh.
So he swooped in and brought some championships to Lakers, but he said, unfortunately, I'm also going to take your daughter off
As
your
a
hands.
prize.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He probably was happy, I guess. That was a big age gap.
How big?
20 plus years, maybe. Yeah, it's
How short is she?
1'2".
Wow.
Yeah.
No wonder he was attracted to her.
He's 73.
Okay.
Jeannie
Oh, it's a
is...
great opportunity to do some quick math. So I'm already ready to minus something.
Jeannie's
from
57.
57, so 60,
16.
so 17 years.
Is it 16? 73 and...
You guys are doing
73.
quick math. I just
67.
give you the...
Oh,
You
you're
said
right, 16. Yeah, you got me.
Did it!
You got me.
You said Brody Miller?
Bodie Miller?
Yeah.
I said Brody Miller?
You said Brody first.
Oh.
Then he said Bodie, and then you said Bodie.
And then I caught up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But people will get mad at me if I don't
Sure.
correct
His
it.
fucking name
okay?
is Bodie Miller.
On Killing is by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Also, interesting that his name is Dave, not David.
Oh,
Right?
that is interesting.
I think so.
Yeah.
He's permanently going by Dave, his nickname.
Well, you know, my dad was David Robert Shepard, and my
Right.
brother's David Robert Shepard.
Yeah.
And so what they did is my dad went by Dave, and Dave went by David.
Oh,
It
so
was
your
like a
dad changed it to
father-son.
Dave once David was born?
No, he was always Dave, and Dave would have probably always been Dave.
Got it.
But he went by David for the distinction. I
Interesting.
think it affected my brother, not my dad. My dad's not making any changes.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
knowing him.
But do you think that if your dad wrote a book that he would put his name as Dave or David?
Big Dave. I think it would definitely say written by Big Dave. Because that was his nickname in AA. People know Big Dave.
I wish I knew Big Dave.
I wish you did too. He would
Yeah.
have chowed you up. He would have eaten you up.
Sexual tension?
He would have liked you a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I had met
He
him.
would have been probably quite inappropriate with some of his comments. And yeah, it would have been fun to watch.
That's interesting. If he had done that, and you were around, would you just have, what would you do?
I would be staring at your face, reading whether or not you thought it was funny or not. And if you thought it was funny, I would laugh encouragingly so he'd be worse. And then if I saw that you were uncomfortable, I would say, Dad, shut the fuck up.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it could go either way.
Well, you know.
Because I was in this position all the time because he was very forward with wait staff at restaurants.
Right.
And sometimes they loved it.
Yeah.
Like sometimes those, the older gal
Yeah.
really got a bang out of being flirted with by him. And then
Yeah.
sometimes I was like, I think this gal is not enjoying this.
You're right.
Yeah, and I would say it.
Yeah, that's good. It's interesting, though. I mean, now at this age, it'd probably be more apparent how I was really feeling.
Uh-huh.
But definitely for a long time in life, if somebody made me uncomfortable, I would just laugh and pretend like I
like
really
you were
liked
comfortable.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, that's so misleading. How can we know?
Well, yeah, but I
know. The whole thing is, that's the whole point. There's never going to be a solution that works. Let's just say that. Everything's
Well,
going to
don't
be.
say
It's
that.
true. There
Why?
isn't. Because it's like a lot of people like being flirted with. A lot of people don't like being flirted with. Some people respond in an encouraging way. Some people respond in a very clear stop that way. So it's
Yeah.
like there's not going to be.
Well, I think the answer is to just tune into the person you're in
I
front
know, but
of.
even if they were, to your point, you just said if when you were younger, you would have just laughed like it was
But
great.
you know what? That's my issue. That wouldn't have been your dad's issue or
Right.
whoever it was. That's on me to say. Actually, I'm not crazy about that.
Yes, but I can see someone making the argument. No, it's not your responsibility. It's the person who's saying weird stuff to you to just stop it. So that's a great point.
Yeah.
But a lot of people like it. I like it. I want the 65-year-old waitress to say to me, "What are you doing, hot stuff? What can I get you?" I love it.
Right.
Keep it coming. Even if she said, "You piece of ass," or "You well-hung fucking soldier," bring it. I think it's fun and exciting. I don't feel physically threatened.
Yeah, because you're
because
not.
I'm 6'3".
Yeah, because exactly.
Yes,
you're
and
not.
You'd feel
physically.
safe if I was in your apartment when those loud noises happen, even though you won't say so. Yes, I'm in a very different position than someone who's 4'11" or 5 foot and 1/2 inch.
And I mean, and did we measure my wingspan? No, but we should.
You really wanted. I take you at face value. You're like, you wanted me to measure, but I'm like, I believe you.
Okay.
Because it's exactly 5 feet and 1/2 inch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's perfectly proportional. It's a cool trick.
Yeah, I think most people have that.
No,
right?
they don't. That's what you're supposed to have. It's just like my purity. It's not.
Wait, people are supposed to be pure.
It's
now.
not that common.
You've gotten more carried away with the pure thing than I was ever. You're saying most people are supposed to be pure.
I'm saying it's not that common,
Hey,
but it is ideal.
tell me the thing that Hassan was saying. Desi,
Desi.
Desi.
Yeah.
Why is it Desi?
He told us, and I already forgot because Mindy.
Oh, you don't know either.
Mindy
That's what
Kaling,
maybe.
for all of our listeners, is
Who we love and is our most elusive guest we want.
yes, and is casting a new show
With Indians.
Yes, and I can't.
Two of them have to
audition.
have an Indian accent.
The one that would fit my age bracket has an Indian accent, so I can't.
Because Monica
audition.
won't do it.
Well, I can't do it.
You can. Well, first of all, you can.
No,
do it.
I can't.
Let's play this out.
Okay.
Let's say that I could teach it to you. Let's just say,
God.
as this hypothetical.
Okay.
Let's say you learned it in the next day or two.
Okay.
If you learned it and you felt proficient at it, would you do it? 'Cause I think it's more about that you want it, even if you could do it.
I think I would just feel, which this is crazy because I know it's acting, but I think I would feel so
Don't you think the context
fraudulent.
But don't you think the context changes? Well, hold on. I think it's weirder to assume that a native to India who actually authentically has that accent is going to know all the comedic cues of an American sitcom,
Right.
versus you who gets the American sense of humor.
Yeah.
Also, the context is so different. It's not a white person writing this show making fun of the accent.
No.
It's an Indian American woman
Yes.
writing it. So there's got to be zero ethical dilemma.
No, it's not ethical.
Then let's learn it.
No,
Why?
I can't.
You can do it.
I don't
It's one of the
want
easier
to.
ones to do.
No, it's not.
It is.
I would feel so uncomfortable doing it, and then I would be bad. If
Look-
I'm uncomfortable, you can't be uncomfortable and good when you're acting.
Well, listen.
It's just not what happens.
When I auditioned for the Coen Brothers movie, it was for a Swedish guy. I have never tried a Swedish accent. I don't think I can do it. But I sat there watching YouTube clips, and I did it over and over again until, like, after an hour, I was like, I think I can pull this off, or I'm at least going to try.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, I doubt it was a great Swedish accent, but I had something going that I locked into that became funny for me.
But you do accents, and you feel totally comfortable doing them. You do them all the time.
Too
You
comfortable.
love doing them.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
So I can't. Anyway, why did I bring this up? Oh, yeah, Desi, because you...
What if I thought you had to do the accent and it was like this? And I said, no, you sound like you're from Bali. But why did I even say Bali? I meant New Delhi.
Oh, God.
Bali's in
Bali.
Indonesia.
Oh,
That's not even in the subcontinent.
It's not. It's not.
That's not even the right region.
I
I notice you diverting your eyes.
can't look anymore. Desi means Rob.
What if he read us the biography of Desi Arnaz right now?
I don't even understand.
It means... Oh, God, let me
Do you
look.
feel unethical explaining it as a white
maybe he feels
male?
bad saying it.
Yeah.
Desi, it's a first thing. Desi are the people, cultures, and products of the Indian subcontinent. Whoa, that's it.
Bangladesh,
Indian subcontinent, and
India, Pakistan.
it is often accepted that India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh are Desi countries. It says as Desi is a loose term. Countries,
Wait, they're not saying loose.
yeah, sexually loose. People from there are loose.
Says it's derived from Sanskrit.
Sanskrit.
Means one from our country.
Ooh.
Oh, cool.
One from our country.
Usually people from India, Pakistan, or Bangladesh.
Ooh, Bangladesh.
So
Bangladesh.
if you know how to speak in an Indian accent and you fit the criteria, you should audition for Mindy's show.
Okay, then
it's gonna
Ryan
be
Hansen
good.
could probably audition then.
Don't do.
Can I tell you how Andrew Dice Clay would say Bangladesh?
Yeah.
Bangladesh.
Ugh. Ugh.
You didn't like it?
That was so
Bangladesh.
gross.
I love you. I'll see you in
Bye.
Bangladesh.
Ugh.